Chapter 632. You two pieces of trash can't even deal with Chi Feiyu. I have to do it myself. The Yinli was obviously very dissatisfied with the ability of the two protectors. The two of them together were not Chi Feiyu's opponent. They had wasted so much time. If the people of the Chi family were to react, they would definitely be surrounded like dumplings. The Chi family's power and influence within the sacred flame royal city must be extremely great. The fact that the Yin Yuan sect had chosen to take the risk and make a move within the city meant that they would definitely catch the Chi family off guard. However, everything would be meaningless if they continued to delay. Please forgive us, Protector. The two of them hurriedly said in a low voice. Although they were both protectors, their statuses couldn't be compared. The Yin Lao's protector in front of them originally had the opportunity to be promoted to an elder, but he was very unhappy with those people in the elder courtyard. Therefore, he did not take the position of an elder and continued to serve as a protector. Look carefully, don't let anyone escape. Yes, Protector. The Yin Lao's figure fell from the sky and fell down. Boom. Yin-yang balanced blade. Chi Feiyu's twin blades spiraled, as if cutting the world in front of him into two halves. The terrifying blade energy rushed toward the Yin Lao's. The Yin Lao's eyes flickered. In the face of this terrifying blade energy, an incomparably surging power pulsed between his raised palms. Boom. There seemed to be a mummified original spirit appearing behind him. After it appeared, it slashed down with its angry claws. It forcibly shattered the blade energy. Damn it. After the power of the two claws broke the blade energy, its momentum did not decrease and fell directly toward Chi Feiyu's head. Chi Feiyu could only block with his twin blades. Clang! The twin blades in his hands were directly shaken off. The difference in power was too great. Chi Feiyu's cultivation was only at the level of a second-grade Yuan king, but the strength of the Yin Lao's protector in front of him was at least at the level of a late-stage second-grade Yuan king, or even at the level of a third-grade Yuan king. Even if it was only a small difference, it was already a very terrifying gap. It would take at least 3 to 5 years or even more than 10 years of cultivation to cross this threshold. Therefore, the gap between them is much larger than you can imagine. In just one move, Chi Feiyu fell into a disadvantageous position. Chi Feiyu, who had lost his dual blades, could clearly feel a sense of crisis. The Yin Lao's protector attacked again. His figure trembled as he appeared in front of Chi Feiyu. Behind the pubic Lao's protector, a person wrapped in white bandages gradually appeared. Boom! The Yuan power on his body transformed into a terrifying bandage and instantly wrapped around Chi Feiyu's body. You can also become my corpse servant. The pubic Lao's protector laughed loudly. Even though Chi Feiyu was trying his best to circulate his Yuan power to resist the binding force, he was unable to do so. However, even the dragon-tailed fish behind him was entangled. Furthermore, it was also tightly binding him. Not good, the elder is in danger. When the disciples of the Chi family saw that their elders were tied up, they immediately became anxious. They wanted to rescue their elders, but the disciples of the Yin Yuan sect kept pestering them. You guys go and take the ore away first. Refining Chi Feiyu was not an easy task. At the very least, it would take a certain amount of time. After the Wuji sect and the Wuji Dao heard this, they immediately responded. Then, with a boom, they rushed toward the carriage. Boom! When they were more than 10 meters away, a palm blasted out. The carriage was instantly torn apart, and the horses in front were also directly killed. The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground rang out, and rice scattered all over the sky. As for this chest, it just so happened that it was hidden under the grain storage of this carriage. A top-grade primordial stone. A piece of top-grade primordial stone that has not been cut. When they saw the box, the limitless realm and the limitless path were clearly very shocked. At the same time, they were also extremely excited. Normally, the primordial stones that were dug out could only be used to maintain a livelihood. However, this piece of top-grade primordial stone was of a completely different level. Even after such a long time of digging, they were able to find this piece of top-grade primordial stone. Today, he finally managed to dig it out. It could be said that the Chi family had made a big profit. However, this piece of top-grade primordial stone that had not been cut could not be stored in a storage ring because the primordial chi was too strong. It was impossible for a storage ring to contain the strong primordial chi of this piece of top-grade primordial stone. Therefore, they had to use this method to transport it. Although they were extremely careful, they did not expect that the disciples of the Yin Yuan sect would dare to make a move in the city. Now, it seemed that the Yin Yuan sect must have done something in other places. Otherwise, why would the experts who came to support them have not arrived yet? The two of them surged out their primordial chi like a huge cover, directly enveloping the heavy box. Drag it away. However, just as the two of them were about to turn around and drag the box away, suddenly, an aura came from the sky. A figure landed on top of the box. Suddenly, the box seemed to have increased in weight for no reason, trapping the two Yuan kings on the spot. What's going on? When the limitless Taoist turned around, he saw a long, black pipe pointed at his head. What is this? Wu Jidao could not see the situation in front of him clearly. Suddenly, he saw an extremely terrifying force erupt from the long black pipe. Boom! The overbearing force instantly attacked. It slammed into Limitless Dao's body and sent him flying out. Boom! This loud sound also alarmed everyone present. When Wu Ji saw his brother, Wu Jidao's figure was sent flying. Finally, with a loud boom, he fell heavily to the ground. Wu Jidao! Wu Jidaoist shouted. Black smoke rose from Wu Jidaoist's face. Seeing this situation, Wu Jidao's eyes were filled with grief and indignation. Even if Wu Jidao was not dead yet, his current state meant that he was on the verge of death. At the very least, he was severely injured. You're courting death. Wu Jidao also reacted. Someone had launched a sneak attack on them, and the person who had launched the sneak attack was the person standing on top of the box. Wu Jidao immediately unleashed his primordial chi and blasted it towards the person on top of the box. The aura was like an avalanche. However, when he looked over, the person on top of the box had already disappeared. Here. Li Zongjiu's figure appeared behind Wu Jidao. The furious dragon catcher in his hand was directly pressed against the back of Wu Jidao's head. Given Li Zongjiu's strength, it was really easy for him to kill these people. Even Lei Gong, who was a peak Yuan monarch, could only flee in defeat in front of Li Zongjiu. Thus, the people in front of him were even more vulnerable. Go down. Immediately, Li Zongjiu pulled the trigger of the Raging Flames Dragon Slayer in his hand. As the sound of the trigger rang out, the infinite space was blasted away. Boom! Chapter 633. Two loud bangs were heard. The people of the Yin Yuan sect and the Qi family were shocked. The disciples of the Yin Yuan sect were flabbergasted when they saw their two protectors get killed by a young man in a matter of seconds. How could this be? Since when did such a terrifying figure appear? Although the disciples of the Qi family were pleasantly surprised, they were not happy for long. The two guardians of the Yin Yuan sect had been dealt with, but they did not know who this young man was. The strength of this young man before them was clearly more threatening than the two great protectors. If Li Zongjiu were to deal with them, they would probably die even faster. Although he looked young, he had killed two Yuan monarchs in the blink of an eye. Even now, they still did not know whether this young man was an enemy or a friend. The people on both sides also stopped fighting for the spoils. Instead, they gathered around each other, as they had to face this urgent situation. Looking at Li Zongjiu in front of them, they had to be on their guard. The Yin Lao's protector could clearly feel the invasion of an external enemy. When he turned his head, he saw two figures lying on the ground. A cold glint flickered in his eyes. He happened to see Li Zongjiu looking at him. He loosened his grip and released Qi Feiyu. Then, he turned his attention to Li Zongjiu. When he saw the item in Li Zongjiu's hand, a glimmer of light appeared in the Yin Lao's protector's eyes. Your Excellency, could you be the famous Li Zongjiu in the city? The Yin Lao's protector already had a guess when he saw the furious dragon-slaying flame. Since they were in charge of a sect, they naturally had to pay attention to the wind vein. They had to pay close attention to any situation that had occurred in the city recently and any powerful weapons that had appeared. If they were to remain stagnant, they would only end up being replaced by others. This was the reason why the Yinlao's protector was able to grasp the news about the Qi family so quickly. Li Zongjiu's reputation had gradually risen recently. Almost everything he did was on a large scale. Therefore, the Yin Yuan sect naturally noticed this. In fact, it was because Li Zongjiu's style of doing things was very similar to that of the Yin Yuan sect. If they were interested, they could directly invite Li Zongjiu to join their sect. This was a very good thing. However, it seemed like the problem had become somewhat serious. Qi Feiyu finally broke free from his restraints and hurriedly moved his body to the side. The numerous Qi clan disciples also came to his aid. Of course, Qi Feiyu's gaze was still fixed on Li Zongjiu, who had just appeared, and the two corpses on the ground. Weren't these two people who were the guardians of the Yin Yuan sect? Qi Feiyu and Qi Feiyu? Qi Feiyu? This caused Qi Feiyu to feel a deep shock in his heart. He is Li Zongjiu? The name Li Zongjiu had appeared several times in the Qi family. Some time ago, Li Zongjiu had bought some primordial stones from the Qi family. At that time, the family head's actions were questioned by many people. However, now it seemed that Li Zongjiu's strength was worthy of the Qi family's goodwill. You are not bad to be able to call out my name. Today, you don't have to die. Scram, Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Before he made his move, he had observed the situation. The primordial stone under his feet was a true king of primordial stones. A casual cut of such a king of primordial stones would produce hundreds of primordial stones. Even if it was just some dregs, the effect would still be better than this primordial stone. The value of this primordial stone was beyond imagination. Originally, Li Zongjiu wanted to snatch it away. However, after knowing that it belonged to the Qi family, Li Zongjiu, as a man of principle, knew that he couldn't be too casual about this matter. If he snatched it away directly, wouldn't Li Zongjiu be too ungrateful? He might as well leave and give face to the Qi family. However, after the Yin Laos joined the battle, the Qi family's people would be wiped out. Considering that Qi Shaohun, the patriarch of the Qi clan, had a good taste, Li Zongjiu had decided to make a move. In fact, for Li Zongjiu, this was a very painful act. He was so generous that he didn't want such a big piece of primordial stone. For others, they might not be able to do this. After killing the two people, Li Zongjiu wanted to leave this sad place as soon as possible. However, looking at the Yin Laos protector, it seemed like he didn't want to give up so easily. When the Yin Laos protector heard Li Zongjiu's words, he was stunned. This kid was a little too arrogant. Did he think that he could scare off a veteran like him with just his name? Young man, your potential is not bad. How about this? Let's work together. We'll split this primordial stone in half. How about that? As for the people of the Qi family, once they are all dead, no one will know that it was you who did it. You can continue to live a carefree life in this city. My Yin Yuan sect will deal with the anger of the Qi family. The Yin Laos protector spoke slowly. His words were clear and his tone was sincere. It sounded like he was really discussing countermeasures with Li Zongjiu. After all, this was the king of primordial stones. If all of it was absorbed, it would be enough for a peak Yuan monarch to break through to the Yuan emperor realm. If one could obtain such a powerful energy, it would be an invisible fortune. Qi Feiyu's eyes flickered when he heard the Yin Laos protector's words. If these two monsters worked together, they would definitely die today. However, there was still a chance now. Qi Feiyu hurriedly said to Li Zongjiu, "Brother Li, my family's young mistress has some friendship with you. Thank you for your help today. In the future, my Qi family will definitely reward you handsomely. This old bastard eats people without spitting out their bones. The people of the Yin Yuan sect are all despicable and cunning. Don't believe their words." Qi Feiyu shouted loudly and even brought out Qi Yanran. When Li Zongjiu saw that the two of them were about to start bickering, he raised his hand and gestured for them to stop talking for the time being. "Don't worry. I owe your family head a favor. They won't be able to take away the item today," Li Zongjiu said. If it wasn't for the favor he owed, Li Zongjiu wouldn't have cared so much. He would have just taken action and snatched the item away. These people wouldn't even have been able to discover who had done it. This wasn't a difficult task. Qi Feiyu was more or less relieved when he heard Li Zongjiu's words. It seemed like Li Zongjiu was quite reliable. As long as they continued to stall for time, it would be even more advantageous for the Qi family. Even if the people of the Yin Yuan sect had some sinister tricks up their sleeves, the experts of the Qi family would definitely arrive in the shortest time possible. However, the Yin Laos protector didn't think so. Just now, he was trying to persuade the Yin Laos protector because he cherished talent. However, since the Yin Laos protector refused to listen and even dared to spout nonsense here, the Yin Laos protector couldn't be polite anymore. Since you intend to make an enemy out of my Yin Yuan sect, I won't let you have an easy time today. The Yin Laos protector slowly stood up and gradually released his killing intent. Boom. Chapter 634. There seemed to be a white energy rapidly seeping out from under the feet of the Indi Laos. Swoosh. With a loud noise, the Indi Laos sensed an extremely terrifying energy coming from under his feet. With a flick of Li Zongjiu's finger, an invisible flame ignited in front of him. With a loud explosion, it immediately ignited the white yuan power in front of him, and the terrifying flame immediately pounced back at the Yin Laos. Boom. Flame. Do you think the flame can extinguish my yuan power? Dream on. Immediately, the Indi Laos let out a low roar, and the bandaged figure behind him also rushed forward. Wherever the bandaged monster passed, it discovered that the surrounding life force was rapidly withering. It actually possessed such an ability. When Li Zongjiu saw this, he was slightly surprised. After all, this kind of yuan power was rare. It seemed to be a kind of energy that could affect vitality, the power of exhaustion. However, in front of Li Zongjiu, this energy was still too weak. The thunder-beheading blade appeared in his hand, and lightning vibrated. Without hesitation, he slashed down, and the terrifying lightning instantly surged out. Rumble! Lightning covered the entire ground. There was a trace of horror on the Indi Laos's face. When he saw the terrifying lightning surging out, the Indi Laos secretly cursed in his heart. This was because his yuan power was most afraid of this kind of fierce and overbearing energy. It could easily destroy him. Come back! In front of the lightning, the Indi Laos immediately wanted to summon his yuan spirit. However, his yuan spirit had already transformed into a magnificent army and directly rushed towards Li Zongjiu's lightning. In the blink of an eye, it was engulfed by the lightning. The Indi Laos protector suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His yuan spirit had clearly been completely destroyed in an instant. Li Zongjiu slashed down again, and a terrifying energy instantly enveloped the Indi Laos. This was too unbelievable for the Indi Laos. Li Zongjiu's yuan power cultivation was clearly only at the first-grade yuan king realm, but he had actually defeated him. How could such a thing happen? Corpse phantom clone. The Indi Laos was not without means. Although his yuan spirit had been seriously injured and could not be used, the power of the move he had been brewing was still there. Immediately, something seemed to crawl out of the body of the Yin Laos and drilled out of its body. Kacha, kacha! Li Zongjiu could not help but frown when he saw this mantis-like thing crawling out of the Indi Laos. It was not because the thing in front of him had become so disgusting, but it was because this fool had used such a precious method to refine it. It was really a reckless waste of resources. You used the doppelganger technique that you painstakingly cultivated to refine this thing? Fuck. Li Zongjiu really hated this kind of person who wasted resources. This was also an extremely wasteful behavior, and he wished he could directly chop off this person's head. I'll let you have a taste of the power of my night demon mantis. The pitch-black mantis moved, carrying a terrifying blade as it charged towards Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu also flicked his finger, and flames flew directly towards the mantis in front of him. Boom! The mantis did not stop at all and continued to charge towards Li Zongjiu at an incomparably fast speed. Kill him. The Indi Laos had absolute confidence that with the strength of his night demon mantis, he would definitely be able to kill Li Zongjiu with a single strike of his sickle. Qi Feiyu and the others were extremely nervous as they looked at Li Zongjiu's situation. Li Zongjiu came to save them, so naturally, they did not want Li Zongjiu to die like this. If Li Zongjio died too early, the Indi Laos would still have enough time to kill them all and take away the items. The only hope was that Li Zongjio could hold on for a longer time. The sickle of the Night Demon Mantis is invincible. No one can block the sickle of the Night Demon Mantis. Not only was it invincible, but it was also as fast as lightning and extremely fierce. No one could clearly see the speed of the Night Demon Mantis. The refining method of this kind of doppelganger cost a lot. The reason why he chose the Night Demon Mantis was to increase his lethality and obtain a greater chance of survival. When they were outside, they could only use these methods to ensure their safety. The two sickles in front of the Night Demon Mantis were constantly swaying. Swish. When the sickle swayed, it seemed to show a shadow. When the shadow appeared, it also fell into Li Zongjio's hand with a swish. Li Zongjio raised his hand and easily caught the sickle of the Night Demon Mantis. He actually caught it with his bare hands. When the Indi Laos saw Li Zongjio's action, it was shocked. The Yin Laos was shocked, as if it had seen the most incredible thing in the world. What? How is this possible? In the next moment, Li Zongjio directly chopped off one of the Night Demon Mantis's arms with his bare hands. When he chopped down, he directly changed the direction of the sickle and directly inserted it into the body of the Night Demon Mantis. Suddenly, dark green liquid gushed out from the wound. Li Zongjio also directly injected the obsidian fire into the body of the Night Demon Mantis. Suddenly, the pitch-black mantis became a braised mantis. Damn it! What the hell is this monster? The Indi Laos could see Li Zongjio's action and immediately cursed. What the hell was wrong with Li Zongjio's body? How could he be so powerful? Immediately, the Indi Laos's figure leaped and directly fled into the distance. If it did not escape at this moment, it would not have a chance. It did not expect that it, a dignified protector of the Yin Yuan sect, was not Li Zongjio's opponent. Retreat. When this word came out of the Indi Laos's mouth, one could almost hear the sound of its heart breaking. This time, not only did it lose its original spirit and a doppelganger, but it also had to give up the king of primordial stones that it was about to obtain. This was the most painful thing for the Indi Laos. The loss this time would at least reduce the strength of the pubic Laos by half. It wouldn't be easy for it to recover, not to mention that the loss this time was heavy. The loss of the two protectors of the Limitless sect and the Limitless sect was already very serious. When the disciples of the Yin Yuan sect also wanted to retreat, a light flashed in Li Zongjio's eyes. When did I say that you can leave? Li Zongjio's cold voice directly poured into the ears of the disciples of the Yin Yuan sect. The next moment, the disciples of the Yin Yuan sect suddenly changed their expressions. Chapter 635. Wherever Li Zongjio's gaze passed, the figures of these Yin Yuan sect disciples seemed to stop in an instant. At the same time, an extremely hot force quickly surged within their bodies. My hand is on fire. One of them suddenly saw a flame erupt from his palm. This flame burned directly within his body, so there was no way to extinguish it from the outside. No! While one of them was talking, he suddenly felt a terrifying flame erupt from his head. As he spoke, smoke rose from his head. Then he saw the flame engulf his head in an instant. Boom! More than 20 experts from the Yin Yuan sect were directly burned to ashes by this terrifying flame. The Yin Laos, who had already fled far away, turned around and saw Li Zongjio's vicious attack. Although he wanted to save his Yin Yuan sect disciples, it was already too late by the time he realized what had happened. Immediately, the Yin Yuan sect disciples were all burned to ashes. Not a single one of them was able to escape. The remaining Qi family disciples looked at each other in dismay when they saw this scene. This fellow, such a scene was truly terrifying. These people had nearly taken their lives just now. Each and every one of them was extremely ferocious. Furthermore, they were extremely strong and were not to be trifled with. But now, they were all killed by Li Zongjio with ease. In their eyes, Li Zongjio's strength was simply way too frightening. What a terrifying mind power! In order to accurately inject so many flames into the bodies of these people, one must have a powerful mind power to control them. Although they seemed invisible, they were in fact tangible. During this process, these people were all burned to ashes. Therefore, Qi Feiyu was also quite shocked. The only regret was that the Yin Laos had escaped. However, Qi Feiyu also knew that if Li Zongjio had wanted to kill the Yin Laos, it would have been a piece of cake. It was just that the Yin Laos had managed to survive at the very beginning. He had heard of Li Zongjio's name before. Now, it seemed that this Li Zongjio was indeed worthy of his reputation. He was eccentric and powerful. Everything he did was completely based on his mood. It was said that Li Zongjio had once humiliated the ninth prince. However, this was only a rumor and could not be confirmed. If this spread to the ninth prince's ears, he would lose his head and ruin the ninth prince's reputation. How could he be let off so easily? Thank you for your help, brotherly. Qi family's Qi Feiyu is very grateful. Qi Feiyu cupped his hands and said, although there were still some injuries on his body, basic movement was not a problem. Now that the Yin Laos had been chased away, there was a more serious problem in front of them. Would Li Zongjio be tempted by such a big piece of primordial stone? Also, was Li Zongjio also spying on them all the way here? Unlike money, some money was not a necessity for practitioners. After mastering powerful strength, money would naturally follow. However, this primordial stone king was different. The value of this top-grade primeval stone could no longer be measured by gold yuan, purple yuan, and the like. The value that could be produced and the effect that could be achieved would make even an epic emperor go crazy. It was hard to say that they would not be too tempted. What if Li Zongjio lost his mind at the last moment? With Li Zongjio's strength, it would be easy for him to kill them. Judging from his performance just now, Li Zongjio could easily kill them. Based on the performance, they would probably be wiped out even faster. Li Zongjio just glanced at Qi Feiyu indifferently. Humph! After a cold snort, Li Zongjio also jumped and disappeared into the night sky. At this moment he naturally did not show him a good face. At first, Qi Feiyu was a little surprised that Li Zongjio left without saying anything. But thinking about it, he admired Li Zongjio even more. Such a big piece of primordial stone king was placed here, it made everyone envious and moved. Li Zongjio was naturally moved. If he continued to stay, he might change his mind and directly take the primordial stone away. Li Zongjio, on the other hand, chose to leave without a word. He just left like that. Li Zongjio's departure would make it easier for them to give up. At the same time, it would also make Qi Feiyu and the others feel relieved. In this way, there was no need to be so nervous. Seeing Li Zongjio leave confidently, Qi Feiyu could not believe it. Qi Feiyu didn't dare to believe that there was actually someone who could resist the temptation of the king of primordial stones. He was really surprised. However, when he turned around, he saw that the ground had already been burnt to ashes. Qi Feiyu suddenly understood why Li Zongjio did not want to let these people go. It was completely to vent his anger. But no matter what, the crisis tonight could be considered to have passed. This allowed Qi Feiyu and the others to heave a sigh of relief. Not only had they survived this calamity, but they had also managed to protect the supreme great primal stone king in their hands. In addition, the two protectors of the Yin Yuan sect had died here. This battle could be said to be a complete victory. Of the three protectors of the Yin Yuan sect, 2 were dead and 1 was injured. The remaining disciples were all killed. Even the Qi clan, who had been fighting with the Yin Yuan sect for many years, did not have such a glorious record. Pack up everything. In this battle, no one in the Qi clan died. All of them only suffered some injuries. It seems like the Yin Yuan sect's plan wasn't to kill people. They just wanted to snatch things away. However, who would have thought that Li Zongjio would appear halfway? Otherwise, they would have been able to get their hands on the loot. In that case, the Qi clan would have suffered a great loss. About 5 minutes after Li Zongjio left, 3 figures flew over from the sky. Boom! 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 When the 3 figures appeared, Qi Feiyu and the other disciples of the Qi clan had their eyes shining. They finally welcomed the dawn. 3 tyrannical auras instantly enveloped the dilapidated carriage team below. Qi Shaohun landed on the ground. Beside him was Qi Yanran. There was also an old man, who was also one of the elders of the Qi clan. When the three figures landed, the disciples of the Qi clan immediately saluted. Clan head. Greetings, clan head. Qi Shaohun looked at the wounded disciples of the Qi clan and immediately released his Yuan spirit. An extremely thick longevity tree fell on the ground. The dense crown of the tree covered the people in front of him. Then, the longevity tree transmitted its life force to these people. Buzz. The disciples of the Qi clan immediately felt the burning pain on their bodies. A clear stream flowed through them, healing their wounds and dispersing the poison. This was the effect of Qi Xiaohuan's Yuan spirit, the longevity tree king. Thank you for your hard work, Qi Xiaohun said in a deep voice. They were attacked by the Yin Yuan sect. Naturally, these people were also attacked fiercely. However, if it were not for the protection of the disciples of the Qi clan, the primordial stone king would have been snatched away. Clan head, please take a look. Qi Feiyu waved his hand. Immediately, 2 disciples brought 2 sacks over. The rest of the corpses were burned to ashes. However, these 2 corpses were slightly intact. Only their heads were slightly burned. Chapter 636. This is... Even Qi Shaohun couldn't recognize the 2 corpses. Qi Yanran went to distribute some healing pills to the disciples of her family. She frowned when she saw the 2 corpses, because the wounds on the corpses were somewhat familiar, as if she had seen them somewhere before. These 2 are the protectors of Yin Yuan sect, Limitless Realm and Limitless Tao. Qi Feiyu said. Qi Shaohun and the other old man were shocked when they heard Qi Feiyu's words. What? It's the 2 of them. If the 2 of them joined hands, it wouldn't be easy for you to defeat them with your strength. Qi Feiyu's dragon-tailed fish original spirit was actually not good at fighting. Most of the time, it was a kind of auxiliary enhancement effect. It could maintain a certain amount of output and support when many people were attacking, instead of fighting alone. Qi Shaohun had a whole new level of respect for Qi Feiyu since he was able to kill the 2 of them. Qi Feiyu smiled bitterly when he saw the admiration in the eyes of the 2 old men. It's fine if it's really me who killed them. If I had the strength, I would have told you that I didn't kill them. Qi Feiyu said. Not you? Then who is it? Qi Shaohun and the others looked at Qi Feiyu in shock. Could it be that he was a disciple of some family? Could it be that there were so many experts hidden among the disciples of some family? That would be too exaggerated. It's Li Zongjio, Qi Feiyu said. Qi Yanran, who was distributing the pills, paused when she heard the name. He almost threw the pill to the ground and turned to look at Qi Feiyu in shock. The expressions of Qi Shaohun and the others were the same. Looking at Qi Feiyu, there was a trace of shock and suspicion on their faces. Could it be that you're old and muddle-headed, or did you see wrongly? Yin Yuan sect sent a total of 3 guardians to besiege us. In addition to the 2 who died, there was also a Yin Laos. Although he escaped, his fate was very tragic. His original spirit was destroyed and his doppelganger was destroyed. In addition, a total of 23 experts of Yin Yuan sect died in the hands of Li Zongjio. Qi Feiyu slowly said. No one dared to believe that such a scene was happening right in front of their eyes. When they saw the 20-odd people burning, they looked like 20 firecrackers. Such a spectacular sight made people forget that Li Zongjio had killed so many Sky Origin powerhouses in an instant. Although these people had yet to reach the level of a Yuan monarch, at least 5 of them were 6th-grade Yuan ancestors and above. However, they were unable to dodge Li Zongjio's attack. Why is he here? Qi Yanran stepped forward and asked. Why would Li Zongjio appear in a place like this for no reason? Why would Li Zongjio appear in such a place? You're saying that the Yin Laos was defeated in his hands? In addition, the 2 guardians died in the hands of Li Zongjio? What about our supreme-grade origin stones? Qi Shaohun suddenly reacted. Could it be that this kid was here for the supreme-grade origin stones? The supreme-grade origin stones are still here. He said that he owed the family head a favor, so he returned the stones to us. Qi Feiyu said. Not only is he strong, but he's also loyal and loyal. He's a true man. Qi Shaohun and the others immediately felt heartfelt admiration for Li Zongjio. This incident allowed everyone to clearly see Li Zhongjiu's temperament. Although it was widely rumored in the city that Li Zhongjiu was a cold-blooded animal who killed without batting an eyelid and liked to stir up trouble, Li Zhongjiu's temperament was not something to be scoffed at. However, in the eyes of Qi Shaohun and the others, these things were a form of smearing Li Zhongjiu's reputation. After all, Li Zhongjiu had already killed your people, so there was no need to speak well of you. In fact, it was all relative. Therefore, one couldn't understand what kind of person he was just by listening to what he said. The corners of Qi Yanran's mouth curled up slightly. Normally, Qi Yanran's expression was cold and indifferent. However, when she smiled gently, it was as stunning as 100 flowers blooming, which made people feel extremely amazed. This guy seems to be not bad. This time, Li Zhongjiu had saved the Qi family from a disaster. Moreover, he wasn't tempted by these things. Otherwise, just these things in front of them were enough to make Li Zhongjiu go crazy. Even if Li Zhongjiu was deliberately pretending, it would take a lot of courage for him to do so. Therefore, this time, Li Zhongjiu's righteous behavior also surprised everyone. At least, in front of the super-powerful temptation of this king of primordial stones, he was able to endure it. Such a firm will was really hard to say. In the eyes of Qi Shaohun and the others, Li Zhongjiu had become even more important. However, in addition to admiring Li Zhongjiu's tenacious will and unwavering will even in the face of great temptation, they also paid more attention to Li Zhongjiu's strength. This was because if this king of primordial stones was taken away by Li Zhongjiu, the Qi family would naturally have a way to get it back. After all, this king of primordial stones would offend the Qi family, which was not worth it. Therefore, as long as they could endure the heat of the moment, they would naturally be able to judge the situation in front of them clearly. However, what surprised them now was Li Zhongjiu's strength. Just like that, those guardians were easily dealt with. Logically speaking, it would be considered good if they could hold on for a while. However, Li Zhongjiu had actually killed them. Both Limitless Sect and Limitless Dao were dead. According to the explanation of the Qi family disciples, Li Zhongjiu had used the Raging Dragon slaying technique to kill the two protectors in 2 moves. In addition to the fact that this weapon was very powerful, his strength was also quite important. In addition, although the Yin Laos escaped, it was actually Li Zhongjiu who deliberately let him live. It was all based on his own preferences. Although the Yin Laos escaped with his life, his cultivation was severely damaged by Li Zhongjiu. This time, his fate was basically not much different from death. Even if he returned to the Yin Yuan sect, he would naturally not be put in an important position. The Yin Yuan sect would not waste too many resources on the Yin Laos. In order to cure the Yin Laos's injury, it would consume a lot of precious resources. It would be better to nurture another Yin Laos. To be able to make the Yin Laos of the Yin Yuan sect flee in panic, Li Zhongjiu's strength had already reached the level of a Yuan monarch. In fact, he was an extremely powerful existence. Chapter 637. Even if Qi Shaohun thought about it over and over again, he might not be a match for Li Zhongjiu. It was already very impressive to be able to cripple the Yin Laos. Qi Shaohun had also fought with the Yin Laos before. However, both sides did not use their full strength at that time. It was naturally not a problem to take down the Yin Laos, but they would also have to pay a certain price. In addition, there was no way to achieve this in a short period of time. Therefore, Qi Shaohun had such a conjecture in his heart. However, these things were not urgent to be clear now. At least, their relationship with Li Zhongjiu was still good. If they could maintain this friendly relationship, it might not be a bad thing for the Qi family. However, Li Zhongjiu has helped us so much. We have to return the favor with a big gift. Qi Shaohun thought in his heart. Not only did they have to maintain a good relationship, but they also had to maintain a better cooperative relationship. I heard that Li Zhongjiu's Li Chamber of Commerce has joined the Baihui Chamber of Commerce. We can also take the opportunity to cooperate with them more. Oh, that's amazing. He already has his own Chamber of Commerce. Qi Shaohun did not expect that it was the elder beside him who said this. Otherwise, he would not have paid attention to this aspect. Immediately, Qi Shaohun could not help but become more curious about Li Zhongjiu. This guy is really amazing. Although the group had resolved the crisis, they still had to remain vigilant at all times. Now that they had returned to the main road of the city, the danger had lessened by a lot. Although the Yin Yuan sect was arrogant, they only dared to stay outside the city. This time, they rashly broke into the city and took them by surprise. It was quite a risky thing to do. Li Zhongjiu went all the way back to his manor. He landed with a whoosh and saw that in the courtyard, Du Lianyi was playing happily with the little girl, Do Ling. Addicted to gambling at such a young age. Li Zhongjiu saw the thing in front of Do Ling. It turned out that the two were talking about playing cards. What's wrong? If you're not convinced, you can come and kill me. Do Ling slammed the table with a heroic spirit. She was like a veteran who had fought in the casino for many years. She learned this move from Du Lianyi. Sometimes, things like playing cards relied on bluffing. If you succeeded in scaring your opponent, then you had already succeeded more than half of the battle. Li Zhongjiu was too lazy to argue with this little girl. I'm busy. After speaking, Li Zhongjiu returned to his courtyard. First, he repaired his everlasting extermination array. Then, in the middle of the night, he asked Shadow Fox to help him get some stones. It wasn't until the second half of the night that the array was finally repaired. It was all Do Linger's fault. Wasn't she too violent? She actually destroyed this thing just like that. Who would have thought that a little girl like her would be so violent? Such a precious thing could only be repaired once more. Li Zhongjiu spent the entire second half of the night setting up the Yuan inscription array in his hands. The everlasting extermination array was also repaired at this moment. At the same time, Li Zhongjiu made the array remember the aura of the few people in the courtyard. This way, the everlasting extermination array wouldn't attack them. Then, Li Zhongjiu came in front of Lu Wenshan. At this moment, Lu Wenshan's body was riddled with wounds. His Yuan bead was severely damaged, but at least his consciousness had recovered a little. At least, he was able to complete his sentence. What do you want to let me go, Li Zhongjiu? Either you kill me or let me go. Lu Wenshan roared at Li Zhongjiu in a deep voice. As he spoke, his eyes were filled with anger. It was as if he wanted to swallow Li Zhongjiu whole. However, Li Zhongjiu acted as if he didn't see it. It's simple. When your sect pays, I'll let you go. Li Zhongjiu said as if this was a simple matter. I only asked for 100 upper-grade Yuan stones. Your sect isn't even willing to pay. Tell me, what's the point of staying in a sect like this? Li Zhongjiu said. At the same time, his face was filled with regret. He didn't expect Lu Wenshan to be in such a miserable state. It was as if his life's efforts were all fed to an ungrateful wretch. When Lu Wenshan heard this, he couldn't accept it. It was just 100 upper-grade Yuan stones. It might be difficult for others, but for Spirit Valley sect, it was just a matter of a sentence. Help me hold it. Just when Lu Wenshan was feeling melancholy, Li Zhongjiu stuffed a Yuan stone into his mouth. Lu Wenshan thought that Li Zhongjiu was going to give him the Yuan stone to recover. However, he was pleasantly surprised when he saw some faint lines on the Yuan stone. What is this? Come, open your mouth. Lu Wenshan subconsciously opened his mouth. Then he saw Li Zhongjiu shove something into Lu Wenshan's mouth. What did you feed me? This is a Yuan stone. Once it leaves White Deer Manor, its energy will disappear. It's the one you're holding. In addition, the primeval stone fragment you just ate has formed a kind of energy connection with this primeval stone. Once it leaves a certain range, or if the energy disappears, then the primeval stone fragment in your body will form a hurricane in your body. As for the consequences, you know. Li Zhongjiu said. The corners of his mouth curled up into an extremely evil smile. Who would have thought that there would be such a fun Yuan rune array in this world? It could allow 2 Yuan rune arrays to affect each other and coexist with each other. If any one of them had a problem, the other would suffer irreparable damage. When a piece of primordial stone shard formed a hurricane in one's body, one could easily imagine the outcome. Even having one's intestines pierced through was a relatively quick death. This shard would slice through one's intestines inch by inch and easily crush one's body. It was precisely such an outcome that just thinking about it gave him a splitting headache. No one dared to try it. How is this possible? How can there be such a vicious thing? Lu Wenshan stared at Li Zongjiao and said, "Oh, I just bought a remnant formation scroll in the black market. After all, I'm worried that I will go out tomorrow. If someone saves you, I will lose out," Li Zongjiao said. Lu Wenshan's eyes were filled with an unprecedented fear. He never imagined that Li Zongjiao would actually have such a method to prevent such a thing from happening. To Lu Wenshan, Li Zongjiao was the devil that would control his life in the future. "All right, you better not move because this link is extremely unstable. If you accidentally throw this yuan stone on the ground, it might explode. After all, I just learned it," Li Zongjiao said and patted Lu Wenshan's shoulder. "I'm sorry." Chapter 638. Li Zongjiao left. Leaving behind a frightened Lu Wenshan on the spot, he wished he could strangle Li Zongjiao to death. Such a person could not be allowed to live. Originally, Lu Wenshan was also waiting for his own sect to rescue him. But now, it seemed that Li Zongjiao's method was to prevent Lu Wenshan from taking even half a step out of the White Deer Manor. If he were to leave, he would undoubtedly die. With Li Zongjiao's character, there was nothing he could not do. That day, he had already escaped very far away. Who would have thought that Li Zongjiao would chase after him all the way? Finally, Li Zongjiao caught him on the street. This made Lu Wenshan feel quite embarrassed. At the same time, he could lose his life at any time. This was what Lu Wenshan was worried about. As a person who had the chance to become a 6th-grade alchemist, he was not willing to die like this. After leaving the stable, Li Zongjiao went back to his room to rest for a while. The sky was slightly bright. Du Lianyi woke up from the bed and dressed up carefully. The hatred in her heart for these years finally had a day to vent. Even if Li Zongjiao could not take revenge this time, if she had the chance to see her enemy, she would do it herself. A delicate dagger was polished by Du Lianyi until it was shiny. "Finally, the day has come," Du Lianyi murmured in her heart. Dou Ling studied the gambling cards in her room all night. This thing was really interesting to play. It looked like a simple prop, but it had a myriad of changes. Last night, Dou Ling also tried to use her mental strength to calculate the changes, but when she met an expert like Du Lianyi, she still lost. There was no chance of winning at all. Even if she used her mental strength to cheat, she could not win. This was what made Dou Ling depressed. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door of the manor. Ing Hu went to open the door. Kun Arashir stood at the door and waited. During this period of learning from Sun Yu, Kun Arashi's temperament had become more restrained. However, as a young talent of Kun Castle and the future hope of the Kun Castle, he had never let go of his dream of becoming famous in the Holy Flame. It wasn't easy for him to attend such an exchange banquet today. He could finally relax a little. They were worried that Li Zongjiao would forget the time, so they specially sent him an invitation. "You are?" Ing Hu asked with a frown when he saw the young man in front of him. It was Kun Arashi's first time visiting Li Zongjiao's house. "Wow, is this boss's mansion? This courtyard is really small." Lan Shan hadn't even walked in yet, but his face was already filled with disdain. Could it be that this boss didn't earn any money at all? How could he be in such a miserable state? "Young man, who are you looking for?" Ing Hu said. "Li Zongjiao lives here, right? He's my boss," Kun Arashir said. "Who's your boss?" "That little brat." Just as Kun Arashir was speaking, Dou Ling jumped out from the side. Her sudden appearance and disappearance didn't scare Kun Arashir. "Oh my god, when did boss raise a child bride? What nonsense are you talking about? I'm a bodyguard that your boss spent a lot of money to hire." Dou Ling immediately glared at Kun Arashir. He really didn't have any eyesight. What child bride? How could someone like Li Zongjiao afford to raise a child bride like her? "Ah, who's a child bride?" Dou Ling thought in her heart. Then she felt that this Kun Arashir in front of her was even more annoying. "Oh, you're here to look for the young master? The young master hasn't woken up yet. You can wait in the courtyard for a while," Ing Hu said. At the same time, he stepped aside to let Kuan Erasure in. However, just as Kuan Erasure walked in, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. A terrifying axe fell from the sky directly towards Kuan Arashi's head. The sharp Kuan Erasure could also see that the axe was formed by Yuan Li. However, he couldn't withstand such a powerful aura. Most importantly, Ying Hu and Dou Ling didn't seem to see it. It was completely aimed at him. Boom! The terrifying force instantly fell to the ground. Kuan Erasure took a step back and dodged the attack. However, the sharp force still hadn't passed. If he wasn't careful, he would have directly handed his head over. What the hell is going on? Even Ying Hu and the others were a little surprised. Immediately, Ying Hu slapped his own head. Sorry, I forgot. The young master set up an Yuan Li array yesterday. You have to take this and you'll be fine. Otherwise, the Yuan Li array will automatically attack you. Ying Hu said. Just now, Kuan Erasure was so scared that he jumped out. He didn't dare to step into the manor again. Hearing Ying Hu's words, Kuan Erasure was shocked. What? Boss even knows about the Yuan Li array? This isn't something that humans can learn. In fact, Ying Hu also knew a little about the Yuan Li array. After all, it was related to mental energy. In addition, Kuan Erasure wanted to develop in many aspects. However, after learning for a while, he gave up because it wasn't something that humans could learn. Even someone like Kuan Erasure couldn't stand it. No wonder only some old guys liked to study the Yuan Li array. Moreover, it was very outstanding because it was too boring. Repeating it over and over again, the same thing. Moreover, you still had to sit there all the time. But are you sure that I can walk in with this token? Kuan Erasure asked carefully. Looking at the token that Li Zongjio personally carved, he felt lucky that he reacted quickly and retreated in time. Otherwise, he didn't know when he would be trapped inside. Besides death, there seemed to be no other way out. Of course. With this thing, the array will recognize you. It's okay, come in. Ying Hu pulled Kuan Erasure again and again before he dared to walk in. This time, the situation didn't happen again. If it happened again, Kuan Erasure would probably be traumatized by Li Zongjio's manner. Hey, you're also a student of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, right? Dou Ling poked Kuan Arashi's shoulder and said, Don't poke my shoulder. I'm a student of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Kuan Erasure said, Then do you want to play cards? Dou Ling suddenly said excitedly, Damn, what does it have to do with whether I'm a student of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor or not? That's not right, little junior brother. Your senior sister is asking you to play cards, how can you refuse? Come, we don't have to pay. Dou Ling had been studying for the whole night and was worried that she didn't have a partner to play cards with. Why are you my senior sister? Who are you? Kuan Erasure didn't know Dou Ling in front of him. Although Dou Ling was very good looking, she wasn't Kuan Arashi's type. He also couldn't directly touch her like this. However, Kuan Erasure couldn't win against Dou Ling. In the end, the two of them and the wolf played cards in the courtyard for the whole afternoon. Kuan Erasure was really surprised that this wolf knew how to play cards. Anything that had something to do with Li Zongjio was basically abnormal. Chapter 639. In the afternoon, Li Zongjio came out of his room. He discovered that the group of people were sitting obediently in front of Du Lianyi, listening to her teaching the card-playing techniques in her hands. Some things were not only useful with intelligence, but also required a certain amount of experience. Not only Dou Ling, but Ying Hu, Kuan Erasure, and the Howling Moon Wolf King were all seriously listening to what Du Lianyi was teaching. You bunch of people who don't want to make progress. Li Zongjio wanted to give each of them a slap. This group of people was really too much. Cough cough, boss. It's this stinky girl who dragged me here to listen. It's mainly because Teacher Du's teaching is too good. Kuan Erasure suddenly stood up and said. At the same time, he pushed all the blame to Dou Ling. When Dou Ling heard Kuan Arashi's shameless words, she was flustered and exasperated as she took a big step forward. You brat, how dare you slander me? As she said that, she swung her hand with all her might. With a bang, Kuan Erasure was forcefully smashed to the ground, causing Kuan Erasure to be unable to react. Did this guy have to be so terrifying? The Howling Moon Wolf King turned his head away as if nothing had happened, as if he couldn't bear to watch this scene. With this small body of Kuan Erasure, he actually dared to challenge Dou Ling. This was simply a sign that he hadn't lived long enough. Li Zongjio didn't stop these people from fooling around. After Kuan Erasure stood up, he really wanted to fight to the death with Dou Ling. However, thinking that he was a well-mannered and educated person, even if he won against this woman, it didn't mean that he was powerful. Instead, he might be cursed for bullying women. Thus, Kuan Erasure rolled up his sleeves again. The main thing was that he was worried that he couldn't win. Kuan Erasure thought in his heart. For the time being, he swallowed this anger. He didn't expect that this little girl, who looked weak and petite, didn't even have time to react when she attacked. Just from this point alone, Kuan Erasure knew that he was definitely not a match for the person in front of him. Is the evening conference about to start? Why is it only you? Where's that Shueyu girl? Li Zongjio still remembered Shueyu. She was the girl who said that she wanted to gather 1 billion purple yuan and then seek treatment from Li Zongjio. Wasn't she with Kuan Erasure all day long? Why was there only Kuan Erasure? That girl said that this banquet is boring and won't go. Moreover, the main thing is that she doesn't have a quota. The Heavenly Time Medicine Manor only gave 2 quotas to the disciples below. In the end, it fell to Kuan Erasure and Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's quota was already decided internally, but Kuan Arashi's quota was won by Sun Yu. After all, Sun Yu's seniority as a teacher was enough to have a say among these alchemists. What quota? Li Zongjio asked. The quota to go to the Myriad Tea Manor. This place isn't a place that can be entered casually. Without an invitation, it is said that even a fly can't fly in. After saying that, Kuan Erasure took out the invitation in his hand. The words, Myriad Tea Manor, were carved on it. What kind of place is this Myriad Tea Manor? Li Zongjio had never heard of any 10,000 tea mountain villa. Was a tea seller so arrogant? Then what would happen to the world? Wouldn't it be better to give it to these people to make decisions and listen to them? You don't even know about the Myriad Tea Manor? Dou Ling looked at Li Zongjio in surprise. It was as though she had seen a country bumpkin with black clothes entering the city. You know about it? Li Zongjio looked over. Dou Ling shook her head naturally. This room is full of top-notch goods. Kuan Erasure shook his head helplessly. However, when he was about to explain, he realized that he didn't know much. Actually, I'm not too sure. Everyone immediately gave Kuan Erasure the middle finger. You little brat, you can pretend to be a fool here. How dare you do this on purpose? You don't even know what's going on, yet you're still fooling around here. Anyway, that's what they all say. However, I know that the owner of this Myriad Tea Manor is surnamed Zhuang. Even if his surname is Bai, it's none of my business. Li Zongjio said directly. The girls shook their heads as though they didn't understand the meaning behind Li Zongjio's words. However, Kuan Erasure burst into laughter when he heard it. He was indeed worthy of being his boss. His seemingly simple words were filled with a thick flavor. Young master, if it's inconvenient, I'll wait outside. Although Du Lieni didn't know much about the Myriad Tea Manor, she could tell from her intuition that it wasn't a simple place. If he were to offend someone or something inside, wouldn't that be adding unnecessary trouble to him? Don't give me that. I said I'll bring you in. There's no room for discussion. Li Zongjio said. Boss, what's going on? Kuan Erasure looked curiously at the duo in front of him. She's Du Lieni. I recruited her. Her husband was killed. I'll avenge her tonight. What? Someone dares to do this to Teacher Du. Dou Ling suddenly slammed the table and stood up. She couldn't wait to rush out and fight with them. Teacher Du, don't worry. I'll definitely help you. If your young master can't handle it, I'll help you deal with that bastard. Dou Ling took good care of Du Lieni. Since Du Lieni had encountered such a situation, she naturally couldn't let it go. He had to stand up for Du Lieni. Kuan Erasure looked at the agitated Dou Ling and felt a headache coming. This girl clearly wanted to join in the fun. If it was only one person, he could communicate with them and they might be able to go in. Now that there were 2 people, it would be troublesome. Coincidentally, Kuan Erishur was also a person who wasn't afraid of trouble. Okay, let's go. I'll call another carriage. Otherwise, it'll be a bit of a journey. After saying that, Kuan Erishur also walked out. Du Lian's heart was suddenly touched. In the past, when people heard who her enemy was, they were immediately scared and flew away. They hated that they didn't know her. Even the ninth prince just wanted to use Du Lian. He didn't want to avenge Du Lian at all. Then let's go. Li Zongjio waved his hand. The two girls rode in a carriage. In addition, Li Zongjio and Kuan Erishur also rode in the same carriage. Let's go to T Villa, Kuan Erishur said to the coachman. Chapter 640. Inside the carriage. Li Zongjio first listened to Kuan Arashi's ridicule of Sun Yu. The things that he had experienced during this period of time made Kuan Erishur almost go crazy. How could there be such a boring thing? All day long, he used different weights and quantities of medicinal herbs and carried out the same kind of experiment to see the final effect of these medicinal herbs. Also, he stared at the changes of a medicinal herb for 7 or 8 days in a row. It had to be said that if such a thing was done, it would indeed make people crazy. However, because Li Zongjio had mentioned it before, Kuan Erishur also persevered in such an experimental environment. Come, I'll ask you a few questions. Li Zongjio then asked a few questions casually. For a level 5 alchemist, these were somewhat difficult and unpopular knowledge. However, Kuan Erishur was able to answer them without hesitation. For these questions, even Kuan Erishur himself did not realize that these were some of the more advanced questions. To be able to answer them so easily already proved that Kuan Arashi's level had improved a lot imperceptibly. Although what you are learning now is boring, in fact, this is the most basic process of exploration. If you can master these basic things, then you will be able to find the rules and solve any problems with medicinal herbs in the future. Li Zongjio said. His attitude was like that of an experienced person. This made Kuan Erishur feel extremely surprised. He could not help but applaud his boss's pretentious demeanor. Boss, did you also go through this in the past? Kuan Erishur asked curiously. Otherwise, how could Li Zongjio be so clear about it? No, I can understand these basic things as soon as I see them. I've never experienced what you've experienced before. Li Zongjio said. Kuan Erishur almost vomited blood. Li Zongjio's words were really too hurtful. Even if you know that you are talented, you don't have to be so direct. Can't you be a little more reserved? The carriage sped along at high speed. After traveling for about 4 hours, they finally arrived at the foot of the legendary 10,000 T Villa. Li Zongjio also took the time to review the White God Fu. With the strength of the White God Fu, Li Zongjio's mental strength gradually recovered the feeling of his previous life. There was no need to worry about his own Yuan Qi. At least before entering the Yuan Emperor realm, he could rely on the elixirs and primordial stones in his hands to maintain it. However, if he wanted to break through the Yuan Emperor realm, then he must use the place where the spiritual qi between heaven and earth gathered. The reason why Li Zong's rapid breakthroughs during this period of time. In fact, it was also to prepare for the explosion that was about to happen soon. In his previous life, due to his weak strength, there were many treasures that appeared in the early stages. He didn't even dare to get close to them. He could easily intercept and kill you from a few miles away. There would be a relic that would appear soon. If Li Zongjio remembered correctly, there would be a treasure in the relic. In his previous life, it was precisely because someone took the risk and took the treasure away. Moreover, he escaped under the eyes of many experts. Decades later, with the treasure in his hands, he directly became a first-class force in the mainland. No one would have thought that a mere treasure could have such great power. It was really unbelievable. Therefore, if Li Zongjio wanted to build a strong future for his Li family, then he must get his hands on this treasure. Therefore, increasing his strength was also an extremely crucial point. The four of them got down from the carriage and looked up at the mountain in front of them. It seemed to be full of flowers and plants, and there were also rows of imperial guards standing on both sides. These are the imperial guards in the palace. If even the imperial guards are responsible for guarding the place, then this place must be extraordinary. Kuan Erisher said. Just as they were speaking, they coincidentally saw an incomparably noble carriage slowly approaching them from behind. A person also jumped down from the carriage. It was Zhao Jingxian of the Zhao family. After Zhao Jingxian got down from the carriage, he naturally saw Li Zongjiu in front of him and hurriedly greeted him. However, Zhao Jingxian suddenly thought of something amidst his excitement. It seemed that every time he met Li Zongjiu, nothing good happened. Would it be the same this time? Immediately, a trace of vigilance rose in Zhao Jingshuan's heart. He must pay attention to Li Zongjiu. If he was not careful, he would do something earth-shattering. Therefore, Zhao Jingxian was also thinking about whether he should find a chance to get past these people in front of him. However, on second thought, this was the 10,000 T villa. He believed that Li Zongjiu and the others would not dare to act rashly. Moreover, Li Zongjiu was still alive after experiencing so many storms. He must have something extraordinary about him. Zhao Jingshuan's heart was filled with admiration. Isn't this brotherly? Long time no see, long time no see. Zhao Jingxian immediately laughed and greeted Li Zongjiu. Of course, there was also Kuan Erisher and the two women. Although Zhao Jingxian was usually a playboy, he still knew how to behave in such an occasion. Moreover, these women were brought by Li Zongjiu, so he did not dare to act rashly. However, when he saw Dou Ling, a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. It was not that he was attracted by Dou Ling's temperament, but he felt that Dou Ling looked a little familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. Why aren't you guys going in? The banquet is about to start. Then let's go. Li Zongjiu also waved his hand and walked forward. Then, Zhao Jingxian glanced at Du Lianyi in confusion. He was a little puzzled as to why Du Lianyi would appear here. From her dressing, it was obvious that Du Lianyi was not an alchemist. Although Zhao Jingshuan's alchemy level was not enough to participate in this banquet. However, one of his family's elders was invited by the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Therefore, Zhao Jingxian took advantage of it and had the opportunity to get an invitation card. Please show me your invitation cards. When the few of them arrived at the entrance, two tall imperial guards with grave and stern faces stopped the five of them. However, the attitude of the imperial guards was still quite respectful. After all, the people who came to the Myriad Tea Villa tonight were either rich or noble. Some of them were even alchemists with unfathomable powers. They were not people that the soldiers could afford to offend. Then, the few of them handed over their invitation cards in succession. Kuan Erisher handed over Li Zongjiu's invitation card. In his heart, he was thinking about what to do with Dou Ling and Du Lianyi. However, he saw that Du Lianyi and Dou Ling are also handed over their invitation cards. Oh, so they have already received their invitation cards. Dou Ling and Du Lianyi looked at each other. In Dou Ling's eyes, there was obviously a playful and cunning expression. Please. The imperial guards returned the invitation cards to the few of them and turned around to let them pass. When Zhao Jingxian saw this scene, he heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Li Zongjiu's position today was still relatively well behaved. In the past, he would often cause a ruckus at the first stage. He was simply capable of causing any trouble. This made Zhao Jingxian extremely worried. Du Lianyi and Dou Ling also heaved a sigh of relief. They did not expecting Hu's methods to be so brilliant. He could even deceive the imperial guards. In this world, was there any place that Hu couldn't go? Zhao Jingxian, do you know what kind of place this Myriad Tea Villa is? It seems to be very high-end. Kuan Erisher asked as he walked. The few of them did not know, but Zhao Jingxian should know since he had lived in the Sacred Flame Royal City for so long. Chapter 641. You guys still don't know what kind of place this 10,000 Tea Villa is? This time, it was Zhao Jingshuan's turn to be shocked. They had not even heard of the 10,000 Tea Villa. How could these people survive under the emperor's rule? Is it very powerful? Li Zongjiu said with disdain. It's all right. This 10,000 Tea Villa used to be called Crouching Dragon Villa. It has existed since the establishment of the Xingyan dynasty. The ancestors who established the foundation also settled down here and cultivated quietly. Hence, this place was called Crouching Dragon Villa. However, this name was not suitable and was changed to 10,000 T Villa. The current owner of this 10,000 T Villa is a descendant of the ancestors who established the Xingyan dynasty. However, they no longer mention these names. The current owner of this villa is surnamed Zhuang. His name is Zhuang Ying. The few of them spoke as they walked. With Zhao Jingshuan's explanation, they seemed to have understood the origin of this 10,000 T Villa. This guy must like to gamble, Li Zongjio said. He was actually called Zhuang Ying. This name was really interesting. From what Zhao Jingxian said, it seemed that the 10,000 T Villa was a place to settle down. The great heroes who established the country in the past not only did not have an equal share of the country, they were also trapped in this villa. Their descendants were also imprisoned in this villa. Those who did not know would think that these people were extremely loyal. Even if they established the country, they would still protect it. However, in reality, they were just puppets of the imperial family. They were objects that were controlled by the imperial family. They were not allowed to leave at all. Even now, many people had already forgotten their contributions. They only remembered that the original Emperor Xian was the one who established the country and became the emperor of the Xingyan dynasty. However, the descendants of these great heroes were able to live until now because the Holy Flame imperial family wanted to pretend to be benevolent. Secondly, these people had been following the rules for many years and did not dare to cross the line. That was why they were able to live until now. The outside world did not know what they had experienced. This was because this used to be the Crouching Dragon Mountain Villa. It was one of the forbidden grounds of the royal family. Normal people would not have the chance to come to this mountain without an invitation. Don't underestimate the tea leaves on the roadside. These tea leaves are all valuable varieties. Now, in the 10,000 Tea Mountain Manor, there are 3 of the top 10 types of tea leaves in the continent. One of them is the soul seedling. Zhao Jingxian said in a serious tone, as if this was something to be proud of. It was as if he had planted the tea leaves himself. What's the use of that? Wouldn't it be burned to ashes the same way? Dou Ling said nonchalantly, but her eyes began to wander. Since this was the only seedling, maybe she could take it away. At that time, it would become very valuable. However, Dou Ling didn't voice her thoughts out loud. You can't say such things carelessly. If the imperial guards heard it, they would invite you to tea. Zhao Jingxian was a business family after all. A group of businessmen naturally couldn't say such things. If that was the case, Zhao Jingxian would have been imprisoned long ago. He had to be well behaved, especially in this dynasty. He had to be clean. Otherwise, even the slightest thing could send him to hell. Zhao Jingxian naturally couldn't avoid such an outcome. Oh right, I haven't introduced these two yet. I'm Dou Ling. This is my teacher, Teacher Dou Ling, introduced herself very generously. Since she could walk together with Li Zongjio, she more or less received Li Zongjio's recognition. When Li Zongjio made friends, he never looked at how strong the other party was. No matter what, they wouldn't be stronger than Li Zongjio. Therefore, Dou Ling didn't look down on Zhao Jingxian because of his strength. Hello, Teacher Dou Ling. This name sounds familiar. I think I've seen it somewhere before. When Zhao Jingxian heard this name, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. When this chill hit his heart, Zhao Jingxian also felt a chill in his heart. Perhaps Zhao Jingxian didn't know this name before, but at least he must have heard of some things related to this name. Wait. A figure flashed in Zhao Jingshuan's mind like a flash of lightning. If he remembered correctly, the person represented by this name was definitely not simple. Your Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's alchemist ranking? The one ranked first, Zhao Jingxian looked at Dou Ling in shock. Although this Dou Ling's name sounded strange and didn't look like a very powerful person, she was actually the legendary #1 alchemist. What? So powerful? Kuan Erasher was also very surprised. Looking at Dou Ling, he never thought that this Dou Ling was actually such a powerful person. This was the alchemist ranking. Up till now, Lan Kuan still wasn't ranked on the alchemist ranking. However, Li Zongjio's name was already in front of Murong Jian's. Low profile, low profile. Dou Ling actually looked a little embarrassed as she waved her hand. It was as if she was extremely embarrassed by everyone's reverence. This wave of her hand was also a signal for everyone to remain calm and not let their emotions get to their heads. However, how could they not be surprised? Zhao Jingxian really admired this Li Zongjio. What kind of monsters were following around him? One must know that this legendary number 1 alchemist had never shown his face in the Heavenly Star Medicine manner. Only a few people had seen him a few times in the Genius Pavilion. However, they only knew about it in hindsight and didn't even know Dou Ling's identity. Is the number 1 alchemist ranking very powerful? Li Zongjio walked in front and said indifferently, directly pouring a bucket of cold water. Dou Ling was originally enjoying the admiring gazes of everyone, but suddenly, her smile stiffened. She couldn't wait to rush up and fight with Li Zongjio. How dare you look down on me? However, after thinking about it, she had already lost to Li Zongjio in the competition at the Genius Pavilion. There was nothing she could say about that. Indeed, this number 1 alchemist ranking was already unworthy of its name. If she was really powerful, she wouldn't have lost in the competition at the Genius Pavilion and could only walk behind Li Zongjio now. This really made Dou Ling and herself unable to vent their anger. In the end, she could only swallow this anger. Zhao Jingxian and the others behind were even more shocked. This dignified number 1 alchemist ranking, Dou Ling, facing the cold water poured by Li Zongjio, did not even have the slightest bit of resistance. She was as obedient as a little lamb. This really opened Zhao Jingxuan's eyes. We're here. This is the place. Chapter 642. A small garden appeared in front of them. The terrain was vast, and there were already dozens of long tables. On the tables, there were countless delicacies. Looking at it from the beginning to the end, one could not help but drool. The sky was still bright, and some of the main dishes had yet to be served. There were already many people who had arrived in advance. On both sides, there were beautiful maids guiding them. At the same time, they could also voice out their requests. These maids were also displaying their postures. This was a great opportunity. The people who came to this place were definitely the upper echelons of the city. If they were fancied by any of the young masters, they would be taken in as a concubine. Then, they would not have to worry about food and clothing in the future. Distinguished guests, please come in. The banquet has not started yet. You can find a place to rest or walk around the tea garden. If you need anything, you can find us at any time. 2 maids came forward to welcome them. One of them recognized Zhao Jingxian, and her eyes lit up. This was the young master of the Zhao family, one of the 4 great families. It was said that Zhao Jingxian and Zhao Jingxian were on a roll recently. They had done a few big things in a row. Yes, do you know where Xiao Tiance is? Xiao Tiance? When these maids heard this, they were puzzled. Why are you looking for him? A voice came from behind them. Li Zongjio also turned around. Zhao Jingxian listened to Li Zongjio's words. Every time this happened, it was a bad omen. It seemed like something terrible would happen soon. I met a few friends over there. I'll go greet them. You guys continue chatting. After saying that, Zhao Jingxian slipped away like a wisp of smoke. The person who came was a well-dressed young lady. She was holding a stack of documents in her hands. She seemed to be very busy. However, when she passed by and heard Zhao Jingxuan's words, she stopped in her tracks. He owes me money. I'm here to collect my debt. Li Zongjio said. You must be Li Zongjio. Su Sha took a small step forward and looked at Li Zongjio. He didn't have the legendary 3 heads and 6 arms. How could he be so powerful? If such a guy was thrown into the crowd, he wouldn't attract the slightest bit of attention. I am. Li Zongjio said. There was nothing wrong with admitting his name. However, as for the girl in front of him, Li Zongjio didn't seem to have much impression of her. In his impression, he didn't know Su Sha. My name is Su Sha, Heavenly Pill Pavilion's executioner. You should know my grandfather, Su Hong. Su Sha stepped forward and shook hands with Li Zongjio. So it's Elder Su Hong's granddaughter. Li Zongjio thought highly of Su Hong. After all, he was fair and just. Furthermore, he stood on Li Zongjio's side. There was nothing much to say. He was one of them. Deputy Commander Xiao Tians should be patrolling at the halfway point of the mountain. Today is the grand event of the alchemy world. With Deputy Commander Xiao Tians in charge of security, there shouldn't be any problems. He should be quite busy now. You can look for him after it's over. Halfway up the mountain, right? It's fine. I'm not busy. Li Zongjio's mental energy instantly locked onto a figure in the vast 10,000 T villa. This figure was Xiao Tians. At this moment, what Xiao Tians was doing made Li Zongjio sneer. It seems that this very busy deputy commander you mentioned is really quite busy. Hearing that Li Zongjio's tone seemed to have taken a turn for the worse, Su Sha blinked her eyes curiously. What did Li Zongjio mean? What's wrong? You'll know when you come. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Then he leaped and quickly headed towards the halfway point of the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, beside a narrow and secluded road, a few armored imperial guards were standing guard at the side. They seemed to be on guard against something. From time to time, a woman's exclamation could be heard from a bush not far away. Why don't you shout? The louder you shout, the more excited I will be. A bare-chested man, who looked to be in his 30s, was rubbing his palms as he slowly walked towards a woman in front of him. This woman was only a maid working in the 10,000 T villa. However, the Imperial Guards suddenly captured her and brought her here. They said that they were conducting a security check, but they directly brought her to the man in front of her, who claimed to be the deputy commander. You can't do this. I'm the villa master's personal maid. If you do this, the villa master will not let you off. The maid said in a panic. The man in front of her was obviously plotting something. And from the looks of it, it seemed like it liked some special tastes. I know. You're called Little Butterfly, right? I've been eyeing you for a long time. Don't obey me obediently. I'm the kind of person who likes to resist. Xiao Tians laughed crazily. He had a morbid liking for the struggling state of the person in front of him. He liked such a scene. When he was in the Imperial Palace as the deputy commander of the Right Army, he had to guard all the tracks in the Imperial City. Recently, the Right Army commander was being selected. Therefore, Xiao Tians had been very obedient these days. He had not had sex for a long time. Now, he had heard that Little Butterfly of the 10,000 T villa was charming and gentle. She was good at serving people. Now, Xiao Tians could not care so much. He still had enough time to enjoy himself before the banquet started. Even though Xiao Dai was extremely unwilling, she did not have the slightest ability to retaliate in the face of Xiao Tians. Even if Xiao Tians did not feel comfortable serving her, she might just kill him. If that was the case, they might just kill her directly, and no one would come to redress her grievances in the future. A trace of despair appeared in Xiao Dai's eyes. Perhaps there was still a way to survive if she submitted to the person in front of her. Just as these little butterflies looked at the sky helplessly, the blue of the blue sky seemed to make them yearn for it. What an ironic color this was. The clear sky was no longer there, because darkness had arrived. However, wherever little butterfly's gaze passed, she vaguely saw a figure appear on the large rock in front of her. Tisk. I've said that he's a beast. Li Zongjio leaned out and said, Let me see. Ah bah, this shameless beast is actually naked. Do Ling took a glance and immediately covered her eyes. It was as if she had seen the ugliest thing in the world. How dare you show off with this little capital? Kuan Arashir said with disdain. How could this be? Su Sha held the documents in her hands and peeked out from the boulder. She discovered that the man and woman were having an affair in the small forest under the boulder. Not only did they know what was going on, but it was also obvious that they were not doing it willingly. She looked at the man's appearance. Wasn't he Deputy Commander Xiao Tians? Just half an hour ago, she and Xiao Tians had confirmed some hidden dangers. At that time, she thought that Xiao Tians was a promising young man who could at least take into account all kinds of situations under such circumstances. But looking at it now, he was simply a beast dressed in human clothing. Xiao Tiance was also a little puzzled. How could he still hear people talking? When he looked up, he happened to see a few faces looking at him with extreme disdain. It's okay. You continue. We're just watching, Kuan Arisher said with a smile. Chapter 643. Who are you? How dare you ruin my plans? Xiao Tiance was enraged when he saw the people in front of him. Where are the guards? There's no need to shout. They're all down. What do you expect from them? Kuan Arisher said slowly and jumped down from the big rock. Su Sha also jumped down and landed one after another. When Xiao Tiance saw that Su Sha was among them, his eyes turned cold. Miss Su, what do you mean by this? Let's mind our own business. In Xiao Tiance's opinion, Su Sha had deliberately brought people to mess with him. Otherwise, how could others dare to be enemies with him? This was simply impossible. Who didn't know his name? Xiao Tiance. It didn't matter if today's matter was exposed. It would be suppressed sooner or later. She was just a little maid. What could she do? I just dropped by to take a look. It has nothing to do with me now. Su Sha waved her hand and said. Her eyes gradually became cold and indifferent. As a woman who strived for independence, she also hated this kind of behavior. Originally, when Kuan Arisher and the others dealt with the Imperial Guards, Su Sha wanted to stop them. However, when she saw this scene, she couldn't wait to turn around and kick those Imperial Guards. How dare you? Su Sha, as a deacon of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, you dare to collude with outsiders to frame this commander. Xiao Tiance was also quickly thinking of countermeasures. Soon, he figured out the situation and killed all the people in front of him. Then he killed the maid. This was easy to explain. Although it would be more troublesome to explain it to Su Hong, there was no evidence to back it up. Miss, don't be afraid. Lan Kun casually took out an alchemist robe from his storage ring and draped it over Miss Xiao Dai's body. Even now, Xiao Dai was still in a state of shock. If Li Zhongjio and the rest had not appeared today, her fate would definitely be extremely miserable. Thank you. Thank you, Xiao Dai was sobbing. Seeing Miss Lil Dai's situation, Su Sha and Do Ling were so furious that their lungs were about to explode. Shusha, aren't you afraid of attracting the guards? I have a friend who wants to talk to you about something. Once we clear things up, we won't pursue what happened today. What do you think? Li Zhongjio said. As Li Zhongjio's strength increased, he gradually became more mischievous. Xiao Tian's strong muscles were not afraid at all. It would not take long for him to deal with these kids. What was there to be afraid of? Oh, I'd like to see what kind of friend you are. You're actually so resourceful as to bring people to deal with me. Xiao Tian sneered. As Li Zhongjio and the others looked over, Du Lianyi also walked out step by step. Du Lianyi had been waiting by the side for a long time. At this moment, even Du Lianyi herself had yet to react when facing her enemy. Was she really going to face her enemy directly like this? He even had the feeling that he was dreaming. When she heard Li Zhongjio's words, Du Lianyi finally prepared herself and walked out step by step. It was the person in front of her who killed her husband on their wedding night, changed her life, and brought her countless hardships. The Pan family was even more cowardly. After receiving some benefits, they directly stopped pursuing the matter. The Pan family's cowardice also led to Xiao Tian's insolence. Now that nearly 10 years had passed, Xiao Tian seemed to be unable to recognize the person in front of him in the face of his enemy. He even felt that the woman in front of him was quite familiar. Who are you? Xiao Tian was a little puzzled. He just wanted to relax today, but he encountered such a weirdo. He couldn't help but feel depressed. Du Lianyi in front of him had an impressive figure and a beautiful face, but she was no longer the type that Xiao Tian liked. From the beginning, Xiao Tian liked the more innocent type of girls. Now that he saw Du Lianyi, he felt that she was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember who the person in front of him was. I'm afraid you've forgotten me, but I won't forget you. My husband is a member of the Pan family. Du Lianyi said coldly. Her body even trembled slightly, and there was a trace of madness in her eyes. So many years of suffocation, so many years of forbearance, so that she could see the person in front of her and kill him with her own hands. After Su Sha heard this, she finally understood what had happened. It turned out that it was the hatred from more than 10 years ago. It was natural for her to take revenge now. Although Su Sha, as the deacon in charge of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, should prevent such a thing from happening, she should send the matter to the Judgment Hall to be judged. However, looking at Li Zongjio's style and the existence of this legendary figure in front of her, Su Sha wanted to see what exactly Li Zongjio would do if he was here. Was Li Zongjio worthy of such a legendary title? It's you. So it's you. TSK, 10 years have passed. You're not bad, but unfortunately, you're no longer the type that I like. As for you two little girls, if you can stay and accompany me, I can consider letting you go today. Xiao Tians actually pointed at Su Sha and Dou Ling recklessly. Dou Ling sneered coldly. Su Sha had never imagined that Xiao Tians would actually be interested in such things. Moreover, he had even said such words so blatantly. Su Sha's face instantly revealed a trace of anger. Just such offensive words alone were enough for Su Sha to list him on the death penalty list. There's no need to say any more. No one can save this idiot today. Dou Ling raised her hand and was already prepared to attack. However, at this moment, a few extremely sharp auras suddenly swept across the sky. Boom! Boom! Not good. It's this fellow's reinforcements. Kuan Arashir waved his hand, and a long spear appeared in his hand. It was the Kuan Wing Spear. As the long spear vibrated, the terrifying aura that it emitted caused Su Sha's eyes to widen. More than 10 figures of the Imperial Guards swept across the sky. Based on the aura of these people, they were clearly the elites of the Imperial Guards. All of them were Origin Ancestor-level experts. Kuan Arashir rushed towards these people, and the long spear in his hand vibrated. Dou Ling also rushed toward Xiao Tians. When he saw Dou Ling rushing towards him, the corners of Xiao Tians' mouth curled into a cold smile. Water prison bead! Xiao Tians immediately threw out a water prison bead in his hand. Boom! The bead immediately released a wave of water vapor and instantly trapped Dou Ling within it. What the hell? Dou Ling frowned when she sensed the power of the water prison around her. But at this moment, Xiao Tian's figure also rushed towards Su Sha at lightning speed. Among these people, it was obvious that Su Sha was the weakest. After taking Su Sha hostage and stabilizing the situation, he would then deal with these brats properly. The Imperial Guards were the last line of defense of the palace. How could their means be simple? Su Sha was shocked when she saw Xiao Tians rushing towards her. The aura on Xiao Tian's body was like a ferocious tiger that had been released from its cage. It instantly locked onto Su Sha, causing her to be unable to move and at a loss. Just as Su Sha was panicking, suddenly she saw a figure appear beside Xiao Tian's. Under Xiao Tian's shocked gaze, he raised his fist and directly hammered Xiao Tian's face. Bang! Chapter 644. Xiao Dunche directly spat out 5 teeth, and his body crashed into a stone beside him with a loud bang. Blood kept flowing out from the corner of his mouth, which also made Xiao Tianche quite surprised. Su Sha also felt a flash in front of her. Originally, Xiao Tianche was about to catch her, but at this time, Li Zongjio directly hit Xiao Tianche and sent him flying. There wasn't the slightest bit of fancy movement in this punch. Li Zongjio punched Xiao Tians so casually and directly. It looked like Xiao Tians was the one who had bumped into Li Zongjio's fist. Xiao Tians fell to the ground with his mouth full of blood. His head was still buzzing. Eat this good thing. Li Zongjio directly stepped forward and grabbed Xiao Tianche. With a flick of his finger, he stuffed a pill into Xiao Tianche's mouth. Xiao Tianche naturally did not eat it. When he was about to spit it out, Li Zongjio punched him in the nose. As blood flowed out, he directly swallowed the pill. Then Xiao Tianche lay on the ground like a dead dog, unable to move at all. Li Zongjio kicked Xiao Tianche in front of Du Lian. I gave him a bone-softening pill. He can't move now, but he will remember every bit of pain clearly. Li Zongjio said lightly. Of course, Xiao Tians heard it clearly. His eyes suddenly widened, and his mouth was moaning, trying to say something, but he did not have any strength to make any sound from his throat. Du Lianyi took out the dagger in her hand and walked step by step towards Xiao Tianche on the ground. You send her back. There's nothing for you to do here, Li Zongjio said to Su Sha. The next scene would definitely be very cruel. Although Li Zongjio himself could be considered crazy, he couldn't let these children see such a horrible thing, right? Xiao Dai was not a fool. When she heard Li Zongjio's words, she immediately knelt before Li Zongjio. Sir, please spare my life. Little Butterfly will definitely keep this matter a secret. Please have mercy on me, sir. If something happened to Xiao Tian's, Xiao Dai, as the witness today, also saw the faces of Li Zongjio and the others. How could Li Zongjio and the others easily let Xiao Dai go? Therefore, from what Xiao Dai heard, Li Zongjio did this because he wanted Su Sha to deal with her. You don't have to be nervous. Li Zongjio, don't need to kill people to silence them. Li Zongjio looked at Xiao Dai and said, then pointed at Su Sha. This is a person from Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Follow her and leave this place. Su Sha looked at Li Zongjio. At this moment, she could be considered to be in close contact with Li Zongjio's aura. It was definitely not the action of an ordinary person. Although killing people was not a glorious thing, Li Zongjio had always done these things openly. He did not hide it at all. Even if you know, what can you do? If Li Zongjio wanted to silence them, then Su Sha would also be killed. The surrounding movements seemed to have attracted more Imperial guards. If they didn't leave now, it would be too late. My name is Su Sha. Su Sha had already seen that Li Zongjio didn't remember her name at all. She immediately snorted with dissatisfaction. Xiao Dai was somewhat at a loss. The situation in front of her seemed a bit strange, but Li Zongjio indeed gave off a different feeling from others. Go quickly. Li Zongjio turned around and looked at Kuan Erisher, who was fighting 15 Imperial guards alone. Next was Do Ling, who had just broken the water prison. Damn it. Do Ling seemed to have used an extremely sharp dagger to break the water prison in front of her. Su Sha brought Xiao Dai and left through another path. This Li Zongjio is really daring. I hope he doesn't kill Xiao Tian's. Although Su Sha was very unhappy with Xiao Tian's identity wasn't simple. He was the son of the commander of the Imperial Guard. If his father, who was the commander, started to investigate this matter, it would definitely cause an uproar in the city. Killing an Imperial Guard was basically a provocation to the Imperial Guard. How could they continue to let these people get away with it? Whether it was for public or private reasons, they would use the most unyielding and iron-blooded methods to investigate this matter. Li Zongjio had directly poked a big hornet's nest this time. I'm going to kill that guy. Do Ling aggressively walked in front of Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio also pointed at the direction where Du Lianyi was torturing Xiao Tian's. When Do Ling saw the bright red color, she immediately turned around and covered her eyes. I can't look. It's blood. I can't see blood. Fortunately, Do Ling covered her eyes in time. Otherwise, she really didn't know what would happen. Li Zongjio raised his head to take a look. Lan Kuan was engaged in a fierce battle with 15 Imperial guards and was unable to hold on for a long time. Li Zongjio immediately waved his hand and a cold light flew out from his hand. The cold light swept past. The throwing knife easily penetrated the heads of the 15 Imperial guards. Lan Kuan could only watch helplessly as these lively people lost their vitality in an instant. Their entire bodies fell from the sky. Bang! Kuan Erisher also fell back to the ground. At this moment, the throwing knife just happened to fly back to Li Zongjio's hand. My God, you're really awesome. Kuan Erisher gave a thumbs up. He had fought bitterly for so long, but he was still unable to take down Lan Kuan. The main reason was that the formations of the Imperial Guards had a certain degree of restraining the enemy, which hindered Lan Kuan's progress. It was difficult for him to display his true strength. In addition, he didn't dare to make a big scene. At this banquet, naturally, many experts would come in person. Maybe someone would see it. My God, it's really cruel. When Kun Erishur saw Xiao Tian's miserable state, he couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle. This time, Du Liani really killed her enemy with her own hands. After torturing him for a while, Du Liani finally ended Xiao Tian's life with her own knife. Until now, Du Liani felt empty. Revenge didn't bring her happiness, but a kind of relief. Finally, she was free from the whirlpool of pain. Du Liani, thank you, young master, for helping me take revenge. Don't worry, I'll take responsibility for this matter alone. I won't implicate you or anyone else. Du Liani also thought clearly that someone must be responsible for Xiao Tian's death. It was easy to kill Xiao Tian's, but Xiao Tian's father was the Imperial Guard commander. This was not something that could be dealt with casually. In the future, there would be endless pursuit. This is called revenge? Li Zongjio looked at Du Liani indifferently. Even Du Liani herself was puzzled. Her enemy was already dead, and there were no other enemies left. Was this revenge or not? He killed your husband, and you killed his whole family. This is called revenge. Cut off his head. Tonight, I'll send it to his father and let his family reunite. Chapter 645. Li Zongjio spoke in a relaxed manner, but Du Liani and the others were still listening to him. It was inconceivable. Looking at Li Zongjio, Du Liani's expression was full of shock. In the past, Du Liani had hated the Xiao family. If it were not for Xiao Tian's father's connivance, such a thing would never have happened. Therefore, the Xiao family was not a good person. They were almost the same. However, the strength of the Xiao family was too strong, far beyond what Du Liani could deal with. Therefore, Du Liani only dared to put her hatred on Xiao Tian's. If Du Liani also had absolute strength, she would definitely eradicate the Xiao family. Since Li Zongjio said such words, it meant that he had taken note of the Xiao family. No matter how powerful the Xiao family was, they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of Li Zongjio. No way, Kun Erishur had not been shocked like this for a long time. Li Zongjio had done the same thing in the past. In order to create more trouble for the Yi family, he had directly exterminated the Yi family. Until now, no one had been able to find any clues. Even now, the entire Yi family had been annexed by Li Zongjio. This was what it meant to be thorough. Now listening to Li Zongjio's words, it was obvious that the Xiao family was going to be unlucky. How could he easily let go of such a grudge of his son's death? It was absolutely impossible to let it go so easily. There would definitely be a lot of trouble. Kun Erishur was able to understand Li Zongjio's thoughts after a little adaptation. After all, it was normal to have such thoughts. Young master, don't be impulsive. The Xiao family, Du Liani was extremely moved. In Du Liani's view, Li Zongjio's thoughts were already dead set on Li Zongjio. In the future, her life would be in the hands of Li Zongjio. Who else in the world could take care of his subordinates like Li Zongjio did? After all, Du Liani was only one of his subordinates. Now, he had already killed Xiao Tian's for this subordinate. Now, he even wanted to kill his way into the Xiao family's headquarters. This degree of danger could even be said to be no less than attacking Emperor Xingyan. Li Zongjio did not say any superfluous words, but waved his hand. You two go back first. Go back and watch the house. Tonight, someone will definitely come to our house. Tom, said Li Zan said. Dou Ling also closed her eyes and nodded, indicating that she also wanted to leave here as soon as possible. Du Liani did not delay any longer. This matter was of great importance. Based on the commotion here, it was likely that they would be discovered very soon. Give me the head, Li Zongjio said. Then, Du Liani handed the head in her hand to Li Zongjio. Let's go. An expert is coming. Dou Ling grabbed Du Liani's hand and quickly disappeared. Only Li Zongjio and Kun Erishur were left. They did not expect tonight's matter to go so smoothly. There was really nothing to say because the movements here and the smell of blood had already attracted the attention of the people in the Myriad Tea Villa. Immediately, the two separated and left. Finally, they gathered in the banquet courtyard of the villa. After the two left, in this bloody place, two figures immediately appeared. Damn it, someone sneaked into the villa. The first to arrive here were the experts of the Myriad Tea Villa. After smelling the smell of blood, they quickly rushed over and found that at least 20 Imperial guards had died here. With so many corpses on the ground, it was terrifying. However, when he walked closer to take a look, he saw a headless corpse with a bare upper body lying in the forest. Moreover, looking at the injuries on his body, it was obvious that he had experienced an extremely cruel torture before he died. This person's figure looked somewhat familiar. The two of them looked at each other and hurriedly went forward to search the headless corpse to see if there was anything on it that could prove its identity. When they took out a token from the headless corpse's waist and saw the words on it, their faces immediately became extremely shocked. This is... Regarding the identity of the headless corpse, the two experts could only suck in a breath of cold air. This is not good. Quickly inform the villa master. Xiao Tian's death immediately set off an uproar in the Myriad Tea Villa. In the Myriad Tea Villa, a series of waves had been set off. Even the villa master of the Myriad Tea Villa, Zhuang Ying, was busy. They were already extremely busy, but they had to suppress the news of this person's death for the time being. Although Xiao Tian's death is a big matter, the alchemist exchange should not be delayed. Let's temporarily suppress this matter. When it's over, we'll find Commander Xiao. Zhuang Ying said. When he heard this, Zhuang Ying's first reaction was that someone was coming to deal with him. They deliberately beheaded Xiao Tian's at such a critical moment. It was obvious that they wanted to create trouble for the Myriad Tea Villa. Villa Master, this is a serious matter. The murderer may still be in the villa. Someone said, if the murderer's target was not only Xiao Tian's, then wouldn't it be more dangerous? How could such a thing happen at such a critical time? Xinyu, go to the Xiao family and tell Commander Xiao about this. Zhuang Ying said, it was indeed very dangerous to hide this matter. If something happened in the future, it would inevitably be blamed on the Myriad Tea Villa. In other words, it would be Zhuang Ying's fault. First, he told the Xiao family that they could do whatever they wanted. At that time, even if Xiao Yun came personally, he probably wouldn't dare to do anything. The 10,000 tea manors status was here. Moreover, tonight's banquet belonged to the alchemists. Therefore, Xiao Yun would not dare to act recklessly. Villa Master, the people from Changxing Pavilion have arrived. Villa Master, the people from Spirit Valley sect have also arrived. It's Song Chu. At this moment, Zhuang Ying felt a headache coming. Even Song Chu of Spirit Valley sect had come. Within the Spirit Valley sect, Song Chu's status was at least in the top 5. With such an expert here, this gathering was going to be a very lively event. Villa Master, tonight will be a busy night. Why don't you pretend to be sick? A person dressed as a counselor said. This person was Mr. Bai Cha of the Myriad Tea Villa. His identity to the outside world was that of a tea expert. But in fact, he was Zhuang Ying's #1 counselor. That's a good plan. If there's anything, let them worry about it themselves. Although it was very direct and obvious, it was a very good thing for Zhuang Ying. It was a strategy that never failed. Chapter 646. Li Zongjio had already cleaned up the blood dust on his body and returned to the banquet garden. The first to welcome him was Su Sha, who had already returned. Su Sha appeared beside Li Zongjio. When she saw Li Zongjio alone, she couldn't help but be curious. Why are you alone? I'm afraid that I'll scare you. Li Zongjio's expression didn't change as he said very seriously. Su Sha was still in a daze. She never expected Li Zongjio to have such a humorous side to him. I heard that you have quite a number of enemies, but tonight, you probably have to be more stable. The people who came aren't simple. There are a few waves of people who came directly for you. Su Sha said in a deep voice. It was a kind reminder. What's this? Li Zongjio held something that resembled a pastry in his hand, but the white layer on it felt like a layer of rice. It tasted sweet and greasy. In his previous life, Li Zongjio spent most of his time in the abyss of suffering. He might not even be able to eat properly, so he had never seen such a thing that tasted quite delicious. This is called a cake. It was specially made by a chef from Sea Return City. Sea Return City? Isn't that guy very far away? Li Zongjio recalled that Sea Return City's location seemed to be far away. It was already the westernmost part of the Xingyan dynasty. In fact, Sea Return City was actually a small island in the sea. Strictly speaking, it was no longer in the Xingyan dynasty's territory, but it was currently ruled by the Xingyan dynasty. That was the case in name, but Sea Return City had its own system. The city lord of Sea Return City was equivalent to the ruler of a small country. He had his own rules. Yes, that's why it's very precious, Susha said. It could be said that the Heavenly Pill Pavilion had spent a lot of effort to organize this exchange banquet. Hey, why did you finish it all? This damn thing tastes pretty good. This was the first time Li Zongjio had eaten this thing called cake in his previous life. It made Li Zongjio deeply feel that these people with power and influence were really fucking corrupt. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had already been crowned with the name of Evil Lord. His status was revered, but he had never enjoyed such things. First, he didn't have time. Most of the time, he was immersed in this bitter cultivation. Secondly, he didn't have such thoughts. You people are all corrupt. While Li Zongjio was eating, he was complaining at the same time, causing Su Sha to stare at him in bewilderment. Currently, the alchemists who had already arrived had already started conversing with each other. However, there were only a few people who were actually eating. By the way, is there a lottery tonight? When will it start? How do I do it? Li Zongjio asked. Since Su Sha was one of the organizers of this banquet, she should be clear about the process. Why do you care about these unimportant things? If it's a lottery, everyone's invitation card has a string of numbers. When the banquet starts, the number will be drawn. If it matches your number, then you'll win the lottery, Su Sha said. Looking at Li Zongjio's serious face, she even suspected that Li Zongjio had specially come for this lottery. We still have to wait so long. Then, do you know where the prize is now? Li Zongjio continued to ask. If it wasn't for the prize of the 6th grade medicinal herb, Li Zongjio wouldn't have come here so easily and wasted so much time. You actually have ideas about the prize. Su Sha instantly understood Li Zongjio's idea. Unfortunately, I don't know where the prize is now. However, it should be in a secret place in the Myriad Tea Mountain Villa, Su Sha said. Then forget it. Li Zongjio continued to look for other delicacies on the table, some that he had never seen before. In the courtyard, there was a dazzling array of exquisite pastries. Anyone who saw it couldn't help but stop to take a bite or two. At this moment, a group of people gathered around and discussed. The more famous you are, the more people will gather around you. The young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, Pei Si, was in such a situation. Even the managers of the 3 largest herbal trading companies in the city had gathered around Pei Si to discuss this matter. They wanted to have some business exchanges. It should be known that the status of these managers was even higher than the patriarchs of the 4 great clans. The 4 major clans were only the clans within the Sacred Flame Royal City. However, these herbal trading companies covered the entire Sacred Flame Royal City. Behind Pei Si stood a tall and well-built man. His face appeared somewhat immature, but his large fists made it hard for one to believe that this person belonged to the friendly group. Pei Si was like a fish in water when interacting with these high-level people. However, when Pei Si saw the figure in front of the long table, the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Apart from showing his face and boosting the reputation of the Longevity Pavilion, his motive for coming here today was to exchange blows with this guy and see if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Just as Li Zongjio was calmly looking for things that he had never seen before, 2 people walked towards him. This must be Li Zongjio, the disciple of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Pei Si smiled and walked towards Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio's back was facing Pei Si, and he was eating the fruit plate in his hand. He didn't pay attention to the person who spoke. The smile on Pei Si's face gradually stiffened. Then, he cleared his throat. Excuse me, are you Li Zongjio? I heard you. If you have something to say, say it. If not, scram. What are you mumbling about behind my back? Li Zongjio turned around and looked at Pei Si. He looked impatient. At the same time, his voice wasn't soft. Those who were slightly closer to him could hear him clearly. After hearing this, Pei Si's expression became even more awkward. It wasn't right for him to leave, but it wasn't right for him to continue the conversation either. The other party was clearly not giving him any face. If he continued to force the conversation, the other party might become even worse. The surrounding people were also pointing and gossiping. The young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, Pei Si, was actually using such an attitude to talk to a young man. Moreover, the young man didn't seem to be giving him any face at all. It was as if he would rather focus on eating the chicken wings in his hand than talk to Pei Si. He was really as difficult to deal with as the rumors said. At this moment, the smile on Pei Si's face had gradually faded. In the end, he became extremely serious. The tall, burly man behind Pei Si also rushed forward. "How dare you be disrespectful to the young pavilion master?" The burly man raised his palm. A terrifying gust of wind was stirred up between his palms. Under this gust of wind, the terrifying palm aura was directed towards Li Zongjiu's face. Pei Si naturally saw this, but he didn't say anything to stop it. "Ah!" The burly man screamed in pain. Then he saw that there were 2 chopsticks stuck in his palm. Pei Si's eyes shone with a bright light. The burly man behind him was well trained in martial arts. Just his physical strength alone was close to that of a Yuan monarch elite. How could ordinary chopsticks penetrate his skin? Now, the 2 chopsticks had not only penetrated the back of his hand, but they had also directly sealed 2 acupoints. An outsider naturally wouldn't be able to see this. However, once the acupoints were sealed, if the body couldn't continue to circulate qi, it would directly cause the heart and lungs to explode. This move is really ruthless. The burly man also felt a sharp pain. He immediately used his other hand to slap the chopsticks away. Pa! Chapter 647. Shintu, this is 10,000 T Villa? Don't mess around. Back off. Pei Si walked up to Shintu and slapped him on the back. That vigorous palm energy instantly spread throughout Shintu's body. Pfft. Shintu spat out a mouthful of blood. However, the expression on his face was a little more relaxed. Otherwise, the chaotic energy in his body would have been enough to shatter his body. There was a hint of viciousness in his eyes as he stared at Li Zongjiu in front of him. Li Zongjiu had attacked so quickly that even Shintu didn't see it clearly. After that, he felt a sharp pain in his palm. If the young pavilion master hadn't intervened, the uncomfortable feeling in his body wouldn't have gone away. At this moment, Shintu also backed off. Pei Si said to Li Zongjiu with a fake smile on his face. He also seemed very embarrassed. "I'm really sorry. This servant of mine is a little impulsive. Brother Li, please give me some face and don't blame him." Li Zongjiu sized Pei Si up. "You're so young. Why is there something wrong with your brain? Who's your brother? Do you think I'll give you face just because you say so?" It was obvious that this was another idiot who felt very good about himself that had appeared in front of Li Zongjiu. "And that fatty just now. Don't leave after the banquet ends." Li Zongjiu pointed at Shintu as if to say that if it wasn't for the fact that the occasion wasn't suitable, they might have already started a fight. However, Shintu didn't even care about getting angry. Instead, he looked at his young pavilion master with great concern. This was something that had never happened in history. Given the young pavilion master's status, even the princes of the imperial court would have to leave their seats and come forward to greet him. However, Li Zongjiu had actually ignored Pei Si completely. "Li Zongjiu, let me introduce myself. I am the young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, Pei Si." Pei Si comforted herself in her heart. This Li Zongjiu might not know her identity, so it was best to come clean with Li Zongjiu. Once he knew who she was, he would naturally know how powerful she was. What about the young pavilion master? So what if he's the young pavilion master? Even if your pavilion master is here, he can forget about leaving after beating someone up today. Another voice sounded from the crowd. The surrounding people who were watching the show were all shocked. There were people who didn't care about their lives every year, but there were a lot of them today. Especially after the other party had registered his number, he still dared to face the challenge. It had to be said that he was a real man. Kuan Erasure walked out from the crowd with a large plate of food in his hands. At this moment, he didn't have the slightest scruple as he swaggered in front of Li Zongjio to humiliate Pei Si together. Although Kuan Erasure came from Kuan Castle, he didn't know much about the Longevity Pavilion. He thought that this guy was just a young master from some family and wasn't worth much at all. Therefore, he naturally stood on Li Zongjio's side. The surrounding onlookers were extremely shocked as they looked at the scene before them. They were all pointing at Lan Kuan, and their faces were filled with disbelief. When Kuan Erasure spoke, it was obvious that he was looking down on the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion. Even Li Zongjio was looking at Kuan Erasure with a face of admiration. This guy was pretty awesome. He even dared to look down on the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion. Kuan Erashi's level of acting tough was even higher than Li Zongjio's. He was risking his life to act tough. You're not bad. You're even more ruthless than me. Good job. Li Zongjio patted Kuan Erashi's shoulder and gave Kuan Erasure a thumbs up. Kuan Erasure wasn't too sure about the situation at the moment. However, when he heard Li Zongjio's praise, he couldn't help but feel pleased. This made Kuan Erasure feel even more confident. Hee, young man, you've got guts. Not only did you look down on the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, you even dared to mock the pavilion master. Young and promising. Young and frivolous. 2 more people walked out. This person obviously wasn't here to help them out. He was here to add fuel to the fire and fan the flames. This person's appearance was obviously to incite the conflict between the 2 sides. I was wondering who it was. So it's Elder Tsang Chu of the Spirit Valley sect. Elder Tsang Chu's words are sharp and his eyes are sharp. Pei Si said loudly. He wasn't afraid at all when facing an elder from the Spirit Valley sect. However, when facing people like Li Zongjio and Kuan Erasure, who didn't play by the rules, he was indeed a little overwhelmed. Elder Tsang Chu of the Spirit Valley sect. That's Nantian Pil King. Who would have thought that these 2 important figures would actually appear here as well? Tonight's exchange meeting was obviously not ordinary. With so many heavyweights here, it seemed like the influence of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion had increased by quite a bit. Otherwise, these alchemists, who had a transcendent status in the Jianghu, would not have given them so much face and specially sent such heavyweights here. You're not qualified to flatter me. It's not your turn to settle the score today. Boy, you must be Li Zongjio. Tsang Chu directly pushed Pei Si aside. After reprimanding Pei Si, he looked at Li Zongjio. His eyes were obviously filled with provocation. Li Zongjio was rumored to be a god. Therefore, Tsang Chu really wanted to experience it. You're just a teenager. Can you really turn the world upside down? Therefore, Tsang Chu also wanted to test Li Zongjio's skill. However, Nantian Pil King also stepped forward and hinted at Tsang Chu. The most important thing now was to stall for time so that the Black Mountain Sword King could have enough time to rescue Elder Lu Wenshan. Therefore, there was no need to force Li Zongjio. Where did you come from, old thing? Why are you shouting at my boss? Kuan Erasure shouted. The 2 people in front of him were obviously here to cause trouble. Moreover, the aura on their bodies was extremely sharp, causing Lan Kuan to involuntarily feel a wave of pressure. Noisy, it's not your turn to speak here. Tsang Chu's eyes were like lightning. In an instant, a tyrannical aura swept towards Kuan Erasure. This aura whistled. Before it swept in front of Kuan Erasure already felt like he was going to be blown away. However, before Kuan Erasure could run away, he saw Li Zongjio blocking in front of him. Suddenly, the sharp aura in front of him disappeared. You're old, so don't get angry easily. Otherwise, your blood vessels will burst. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Chapter 648. Li Zongjio's words sounded like he was trying to persuade Tsang Chu, but in fact, he was mocking Tsang Chu for being too old. Tsang Chu shouldn't be so hot-blooded. Li Zongjio was too embarrassed to argue with him. Tsang Chu was not as easy to deal with as a young man. Tsang Chu was instantly enraged. He was about to explode on the spot. When he was in Spirit Valley sect, Every disciple who saw him would lower their head and speak softly and respectfully to him. But now, Li Zongjio was so arrogant and even mocked him. This made Song Chu even angrier and unhappy. He had never seen such a bold person. It seems that the elders in your family did not teach you what the order of seniority is. Song Chu said coldly. Nantian Pil King did not dare to step forward to stop Song Chu. One should know that Song Chu's status was enough to look down on him, Nantian Pil King. Song Chu was just giving him face. If Nantian Pil King did not give him face, he would not be able to talk to Song Chu. After all, Song Chu was a real 6th grade alchemist. Come up here. I'll tell you what the elders in my family taught me. Li Zongjio smiled at Song Chu, and then put the tray back on the table. The smile on Li Zongjio's face also revealed a trace of chilliness, causing people to feel a sense of panic after seeing it. What an arrogant person! Pei Si, who was watching the confrontation between Li Zongjio and Song Chu, thought that Li Zongjio did not even flinch in the face of Song Chu's oppression. At this moment, he even directly provoked Song Chu and asked Song Chu to step forward. This was the beginning of the fight. Song Chu, of course, was not afraid at all. Could it be that this kid wanted to fight with him? Did he really think that a 6th grade alchemist's flame was used to cook rice? Immediately, Song Chu's aura shook. The surrounding onlookers were also looking at this scene. No one would have thought that Elder Song Chu from the Spirit Valley sect would actually make things difficult for these two brats. Furthermore, it seemed like the two of them were not afraid of Elder Song Chu at all. The two of you are going to have a fight in Tea Mountain Villa? Finally, someone jumped out to smooth things over. If he did not appear, these two people would probably have a fight. After all, in this situation, neither of them was to give in to the other. Naturally, there was no way to end to it. If one of them didn't die, then it wouldn't end. If they started fighting, then it would be hard to say. But before they started fighting, there was still hope. The chief elder, Tsu. The vigorous Yuan power also gradually suppressed the chaotic aura in the surroundings. Although Su Hong's alchemy cultivation was not as good as Song Chu, he was still the chief elder of Heavenly Pill Pavilion. His cultivation was not weak either. Most importantly, Elder Su Hong represented the Xingyan dynasty. Therefore, Song Chu and the rest did not dare to not give him face. Even the entire Spirit Valley sect was nothing in front of the Xingyan dynasty. Both of you, please calm down. Can you give me face? Su Hong said. This sentence again. Pei Si sneered in his heart. He did not even give face to me, the young pavilion master. Do you think he will give face to you, an old man? All right, I'll give you face. I'll settle the score with him after this. Li Zongjio said directly. These words made Song Chu explode on the spot. This kid is too arrogant. He'll settle the score with me after this. Very well, Li Zongjio. After today, your name will be removed from Royal City. Song Chu said fiercely. Then he turned around to leave. Su Hong heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. However, in the blink of an eye, he saw Li Zongjio throwing out something in his hand. Pa! The cake made by the chef specially invited from Sea Return City smashed into the back of the head of the person holding Song Chu. The entire cake was stuck on Song Chu's head. In an instant, the atmosphere became quiet. When Pei Si saw this scene, she saw Song Chu's expression changing constantly. At the beginning, Song Chu was a little surprised, but he quickly came to his senses. Li Zongjio had thrown something at the back of Song Chu's head. His face instantly became extremely gloomy. Su Hong saw this scene and looked at Li Zongjio. He could not understand why Li Zongjio would do such a thing. You saw it for yourself. He didn't give me face. Li Zongjio waved his hand helplessly. It was not that he didn't give face. Generally speaking, Li Zongjio rarely gave face to others. Su Hong had previously appreciated Li Zongjio, so Li Zongjio naturally wouldn't embarrass Su Hong in front of so many people. However, now it seemed that Song Chu was unrelenting. Since he had said such harsh words, how could Li Zongjio let him off? You're courting death. Song Chu flew into a rage. His hair seemed to burn with a terrifying light. The fire instantly ignited his white hair, making him look like a burning wooden stake. He turned around and glared at Li Zongjio in front of him. He couldn't wait to kill Li Zongjio at this moment. Prince Murong has arrived. A small eunuch's voice pierced through the sky, sharp and ear-piercing. When the surrounding crowd heard this, they all stood on both sides. Prince Murong, that was Murong Yunzhan. As an event organized by the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, they naturally had to invite some heavyweight figures. In any case, they could be considered as holding the fort. Otherwise, it would naturally be meaningless for a group of little brats to be below. With heavyweight guests, it was naturally equivalent to having a corps. Song Chu, who was about to fly into a rage, couldn't help but be startled at this moment. If he didn't give face to Su Hong, it wouldn't matter. After all, Su Hong might be replaced soon. To put it bluntly, Su Hong couldn't represent the entire Heavenly Pill Pavilion. After all, he was only an elder. However, Prince Murong was different. Not to mention Prince Murong's status, just his influence in the Xingyan dynasty was enough to make Song Chu restrain his temper. He didn't dare to act recklessly. He could ignore other people's faces, but he couldn't ignore Prince Murong's face. Song Chu was very clear about this point. "Welcome, Your Highness." Su Hong took the lead and walked to the front, facing Prince Murong's direction. The rest of the people followed suit. "Welcome, Your Highness." Chapter 649. Elder Su, the Heavenly Pill Pavilion has indeed lived up to the expectations of the dynasty. Today's glorious scene has truly opened my eyes. Murong Wang stepped forward and said. Su Hong could only smile awkwardly. "Fortunately, you came early. If you came a little later, there would probably be a river of blood here. If the two of them were to fight, who knows what the situation would be like. Elder Song Chu, why didn't you inform me that you were coming? You've really surprised me." When Murong Wang saw Song Chu, he also went forward to greet him. Song Chu's face was originally filled with murderous intent, but at this moment, he gradually withdrew it. If he accidentally vented his hatred on Murong Wang, he would be in trouble today. Although Murong Yunzhan's strength was ordinary, his identity was special. He was a prince of the Xingyan dynasty. If he offended him, he could just go to the Emperor Xingyan and say something bad about him. Then he would be taken away immediately. "Greetings, Murong Wang," Song Chu said with a fake smile. Although he was smiling, he was still thinking about how to torture Li Zongjio. When Old Black returned, he would definitely cripple Li Zongjio and torture him ruthlessly. He would make Li Zongjio suffer a fate worse than death. "Elder Song, there's no need to be so polite. Since everyone is here, let's start the banquet. Come, Elder Song, we haven't seen each other for a long time. We should have a good chat." Murong Wang stepped forward and held Song Chu's hand enthusiastically. When he passed by Pei Si, he was slightly surprised. Then, he looked at him with a look of realization. This must be the young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, Pei Si. You indeed have your father's heroic spirit. When Murong Wang saw Pei Si, he spoke up. Murong Yunzhan's eyes were sharp. With just a glance, he took away the two heavyweights present. Of course, there was also Pill King Nantian. He also took care of them all. At this moment, the tense atmosphere from before had also been completely erased. So at this moment, Li Zongjio didn't continue to pursue the matter. Anyway, throwing a cake over just now could be considered as teaching the other party a lesson. The atmosphere at the scene gradually dissipated. As Murong Wang left with the other two, Su Hong heaved a sigh of relief. He glanced at Li Zongjio in annoyance. He was truly doomed by Li Zongjio's personality. You should be more careful," Su Hong shook his head and said. He had also heard about Li Zongjio's matter. These people were obviously targeting Li Zongjio, so it was impossible for him to directly make Li Zongjio submit to them. After all, Su Hong was still biased towards Li Zongjio. From the beginning, he had been very optimistic about Li Zongjio. To be able to kill his enemy in the Heavenly Dawn medicine manner through a duel in the arena, he had to be able to do so. From then on, Su Hong already knew that Li Zongjio was definitely a ruthless person. "He provoked me." Li Zongjio also expressed his helplessness. It was rare for him to make peace like this. He had already given Su Hong a lot of face. However, since Su Hong didn't give him face, he couldn't blame Li Zongjio. After that, Su Hong also went to host the banquet. There were still many things to arrange. This time, you really stole the limelight. Li Zongjio gave Kun Erasure a thumbs up. Lan Kun, on the other hand, felt a little strange. How could it be me? Don't you know? You just humiliated the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion. I estimate that tonight, your name will start to spread through the streets and alleys. Li Zongjio said. Pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion? This name sounds familiar. Kun Erasure said with a frown. Seeing that Li Zongjio wanted to praise him again and again, he felt a little anxious in his heart. There must be a problem. Wait, Longevity Pavilion, Pavilion Master. Damn, why do I remember that there is a Pavilion Master who is a grade 7 alchemist? Kun Erasure immediately looked at Li Zongjio with an inquiring gaze. He wanted to get accurate information from Li Zongjio. Congratulations. Li Zongjio patted Kun Arashi's shoulder. Damn, did I just humiliate a grade 7 alchemist? Kun Erasure suddenly opened his mouth wide. This seemed to be different from the scene he had imagined. Originally, he should have stood behind Li Zongjio and added a little stab. But now, he actually encountered such a situation. When he spoke, how could he directly bring Li Zongjio's father into the conversation? Who knew that the other party's father was actually a grade 7 alchemist? The reason why the Longevity Pavilion was superior to other alchemy giants was precisely because of the existence of a grade 7 alchemist. Being able to break through to the level of a grade 7 alchemist was also a kind of another realm and level. It was already on a different level from the people below. Now, Kun Erasure could be considered to be famous. According to this, Kun Erasure should be the first person who dared to ignore the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion. Therefore, now Kun Arashi's heart was a little worried. It's fine, don't worry. Li Zongjio patted Kun Arashi's shoulder and said, It's really fine? Really, you can rest assured and eat tonight. You must eat until you are full. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? Li Zongjio teased. Kun Arashi's face suddenly turned ashen. Such a tragic situation, Kun Arashi's future days would be very difficult. Li Zongjio's gaze was also fixed on Murong Yunjan. Li Zongjio naturally had to pay attention to Murong Yunjan, who had suddenly appeared to cause trouble. Now, it seemed that Murong Yunjan had not learned his lesson after the last time. If Murong Yunjan did not know what was good for him and wanted to be enemies with Li Zongjio, then Li Zongjio would not mind having an extra head in his hands. Young master, please have some tea. This is Picturesque Landscape, one of the 7 famous teas. Just when Li Zongjio was teasing Kun Erasure, a soft voice sounded beside him. Li Zongjio turned around and saw that it was the maid he had saved from Xiao Taiyan's. As for her name, Li Zongjio could not remember it. Oh, it's you, Li Zongjio saw Xiao Dai appear. Obviously, Xiao Dai did not dare to believe that Li Zongjio would let her go just like that. Therefore, Xiao Dai admired Li Zongjio even more in her heart. She even started to admire him from the bottom of her heart. This tea is quite fragrant. The banquet was still going on. Although the disturbance was not small and caused quite a stir, now more people were discussing it in private. At the same time, they also kept a respectful distance from Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio did not care about it. At this moment, on the Autumn Water Avenue, a figure carrying a long sword welcomed. His entire body was covered in a black robe. When he arrived in front of the manor's door, he unsheathed the sword on his back. Chapter 650. The black longsword was in his hand. The corners of the Black Mountain Sword King's mouth curled into a disdainful sneer. Then, with a leap, he flew directly into the house. For the Black Mountain Sword King, entering such a place was basically like entering a place with no one around. The defense is so lax. There's no challenge at all. I'd like to see what kind of formation you have in your house. Just as the Black Mountain Sword King finished speaking, he immediately felt a thick white mist gushing out in front of him. Boom! The white mist quickly flew over like a giant beast, opening its mouth and swallowing the Black Mountain Sword King. The Black Mountain Sword King stood in place like a towering mountain. Facing the white mist that was surging in from all directions, his face did not show the slightest bit of surprise or any fluctuation. Even though he was standing there calmly, the invisible aura had already gradually suppressed the surrounding aura. Insignificant skill, break. The Black Mountain Sword King growled. The sword chi in his hand instantly vibrated. As the long sword whistled, a terrifying aura descended and instantly split the sea of white mist into two halves. Boom! The white mist instantly retreated. The Black Mountain Sword King's figure still stood in place without moving. In a corner of the courtyard, a primordial stone engraved with a Yuan rune formation was easily turned into powder. Brr! A figure appeared in front of the Black Mountain Sword Monarch. When he saw the Howling Moon Wolf King appear, the Black Mountain Sword Monarch's eyes flickered with a hint of contempt. So it's just a little wolf. I was wondering how many years of cultivation you had. Give me your life. The Black Mountain Sword King flicked his wrist and kept the long sword in his hand. His figure also suddenly rushed toward the Howling Moon Wolf King. In an instant, a terrifying tremor was set off in the surrounding area. In the eyes of the Black Mountain Sword King, there seemed to be an earth-shattering catastrophe appearing in front of him. As the terrifying power spread, it attacked the Black Mountain Sword King. Illusion. How could such a terrifying scene appear in the sacred flame imperial city? Could it be that the young man in front of him was so tender that he was able to withstand the lava from the volcano? The Black Mountain Sword King could not believe it. However, as the magma fell, the Black Mountain Sword King also realized that something was wrong. It seemed that the aura hidden in the magma was not simple. It was very real. The Black Mountain Sword King finally took a step back. Sizzle! A few drops of lava landed on the Black Mountain Sword King's body and immediately penetrated his clothes. This power was actually real. Roar! The Howling Moon Wolf King suddenly split into two and charged at the Black Mountain Sword King. One of the terrifying movements was a spiritual doppelganger. They attacked the Black Mountain Sword King at the same time. The Black Mountain Sword Monarch slapped his sword, and two terrifying rays of light were immediately released from the sword, rushing towards the Howling Moon Wolf King. However, the power of the formation did not weaken. At this moment, the world seemed to be spinning, and the Black Mountain Sword King was trapped in the formation. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Since you like to use these crooked methods, let me show you what real power is. Dark Demon Tiger, show yourself. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately summoned his original spirit. It was a darkness demon tiger. Its entire body was pitch black, and its body was nearly 30 feet long. In addition, the lines on its forehead were white, which added a chill to the dark night. The two doppelganger of the Howling Moon Wolf King tore apart the light and rushed towards the Black Mountain Sword King, wanting to pounce on him. As for this meta beast, it was extremely powerful. Even if the enemy was strong, in the face of a life and death crisis, it could not afford to be so relaxed. It had to go all out. Boom! The thick claws of the Dark Demon Tiger slammed the Howling Moon Wolf King to the ground with a loud bang. The Howling Moon Wolf King's body was immediately sent flying. The other mental energy doppelganger was also smashed to pieces by the Dark Demon Tiger's tail. Facing the Howling Moon Wolf King, the Dark Demon Tiger could basically kill it in a second. It could be said that it did not take the Howling Moon Wolf King seriously. In addition, the surrounding Yuan inscription formation was on the verge of collapse under the Black Mountain Sword King's indiscriminate bombardment. After all, the power of a Sword King was definitely not undeserved. The Dark Demon Tiger wanted to continue to injure the Howling Moon Wolf King, but it found that the Howling Moon Wolf King's body had shrunk and was carried away by someone. The Dark Demon Tiger immediately opened its mouth and shot a ray of dark light at the Shadow Fox. Boom! The Shadow Fox was sent flying, but it was wearing an inner armor. In addition, it had recently made a breakthrough in cultivation, so it was able to block the attack. It gritted its teeth and persevered, taking the Howling Moon Wolf King and flipping over the wall. As the original spirit of the Black Mountain Sword King, The dark demon tiger could not be too far away from the Black Mountain Sword King, so it could only watch the shadow fox take the howling moon wolf king away. But the Yuan inscription formation was about to be dismantled by the Black Mountain Sword King. The Black Mountain Sword King did not continue to pursue. With a sweep of his mind power, he immediately found Lu Wenshan, who was locked in the stable. At this time, Lu Wenshan had been nervous for the whole day. He did not dare to let go of the primordial stone. If it fell to the ground, his stomach might be crushed. And at this time, Lu Wenshan did not have enough mind power to force the thing out of his body. So he could only hold on to the primordial stone, not daring to let go. There was a series of tremors outside, and then the Black Mountain Sword King rushed into the stable. Elder Lu! The Black Mountain Sword King smashed the stable in front of him. Lu Wenshan, who was hiding inside, was exposed. When Lu Wenshan saw that the stable he had lived in for several days had collapsed, he suddenly became nervous. Fuck, what do you want to do? Lu Wenshan saw the Black Mountain Sword King and suddenly became nervous. After being imprisoned for so many days and being beaten for so long, it was inevitable that he was a little panicked. His mental state was obviously a little wrong. To be able to turn a 6th grade alchemist into this in such a short time, Li Zhongjio's ability was really not small. Elder Lu, I'm here to save you. Fuck off, who wants you to save me? Get out of here. Lu Wenshan pointed at the Black Mountain Sword King and said rudely. Save him? If there was even the slightest movement, maybe this person would be gone. So Lu Wenshan was now very nervous. Chapter 651. The Black Mountain Sword King was a little dumbfounded by Lu Wenshan's scolding. Had Lu Wenshan become stupid after being locked up here? But after all, Lu Wenshan was a genius who had the opportunity to break through to become a grade 6 alchemist. Perhaps the Black Mountain Sword King would have to rely on Lu Wenshan in the future. Previously, when he cooperated with Song Chu, he watched Song Chu step by step. On this road, the two could be said to have lived and died together, so there was now such a deep friendship. If the Black Mountain Sword King wanted to refine any elixir, he only needed to find the medicinal herbs. Of course, at the Black Mountain Sword King's level, the medicinal herbs were very rare, let alone the elixir. It was not easy to gather the medicinal herbs for the elixir. Knowing another grade 6 alchemist was naturally a good thing for the Black Mountain Sword King. It was also because of the importance of Lu Wenshan that the Spirit Valley sect sent 2 masters, Song Chu and the Black Mountain Sword King, to come. Elder Lu, what's wrong with you? Wake up, I'm Black Mountain. The Black Mountain Sword Monarch said in a deep voice. At the same time, a tyrannical Yuan force surged towards Lu Wenshan's body to help him recover. With the influx of Yuan Qi, Lu Wenshan calmed down a little. Black Mountain Sword King? Don't save me, I've been set up by that boy. Once I leave here, I'll definitely die. After Lu Wenshan woke up, he immediately said to the Black Mountain Sword King. If the Black Mountain Sword King came forward and took him away, he was afraid that he would directly die as soon as he left White Deer Manor. Such a scene was naturally very tragic and tragic. Lu Wenshan did not want to die so inexplicably. At that time, he had seen Li Zhongjio with his own eyes, so at this moment he absolutely would not take the risk. Elder Lu, that boy is sinister and cunning. Could it be that he's tricking you? Let me check for you. The Black Mountain Sword King said. After all, he was a Yuan King master. In this aspect, there was no problem. He poured his origin energy into Lu Wenshan's body and immediately circulated it around Lu Wenshan's body. However, he didn't find any movement or abnormalities. No, you don't know that guy's methods. That guy is a ruthless person. He definitely won't shoot without thinking. Lu Wenshan grabbed the Black Mountain Sword King's hand. Capturing that brat is the key. He had to personally remove it. Black Mountain Sword King, you must help me catch that brat. Only in this way can I survive. Only then can I be at ease. Looking at Lu Wenshan's panicked appearance, the Black Mountain Sword King's heart was filled with disdain. How could such a person claim to be a genius who could break through to the 6th grade alchemist in the future? It was really laughable. However, what the Black Mountain Sword King did not know was that before he met Li Zhongjio, the Black Mountain Sword King did not know. With Lu Wenshan's temper, he was more arrogant than anyone else in the world. But now, he looked like a frightened little lamb. People couldn't help but laugh at him. How could such a situation happen? It was really despicable. Elder Lu, don't worry. That brat can't escape. The Black Mountain Sword King comforted Lu Wenshan. Then, with a wave of his hand, he chopped the back of Lu Wenshan's head and directly knocked him out. How troublesome, wasting so much of my time. The Black Mountain Sword King said impatiently. If it were an ordinary person, he would have slapped the Black Mountain Sword King's head and mouth away. How could he be so wishy-washy? Then, the Black Mountain Sword King was ready to carry Lu Wenshan. But his keen perception made the Black Mountain Sword King's eyes instantly become sharp. His gaze was fixed in the direction behind. Did you hurt Wolf Cub and Shadow Elder? A cold and angry voice rang out. Beside Dou Linger, Du Liani was supporting Shadow Fox. Dou Linger was also holding the Howling Moon Wolf King in her arms. Clearly, the battle just now had caused the two of them to suffer extremely serious injuries. Although Shadow Fox could be said to be holding on and was in a conscious state, Dou Linger was still holding on. But in fact, Shadow Fox's situation was much worse than Howling Moon Wolf King's. After all, Howling Moon Wolf King was a meta beast. Its resilience and vitality were extremely strong. As long as it was still breathing, it could recover by lying down and resting. But relatively speaking, this human's ability to recover and survive was not as strong as a meta beast's, but it would not die for the time being. Looking at the seriously injured person and wolf, Dou Linger's heart naturally flew into a rage. In any case, they were her friends. But since you broke into the house that Dou Linger needed to protect and injured her, then all the more she couldn't let you go. A bunch of death-seeking trash. The Black Mountain Sword King had been in the Jianghu for many years and had killed countless people. If pressed, he would not show the slightest mercy, whether it was the old, the weak, women, widowed, or lonely. It was because of his heart of stone that he could live until now. A little girl actually dared to clamor in front of him and question him. The Black Mountain Sword King had enough reason to kill the intruder. He didn't even need to use a sword. The Black Mountain Sword King directly waved his palm. Although they were more than 10 meters apart, the domineering palm energy turned into a terrifying sword light. He actually wanted to kill everyone in one move. Dou Linger took a step forward and an oil paper umbrella-like object appeared in her hand. When the oil paper umbrella appeared, it immediately spun and released a terrifying brilliance that knocked away the sword light in front of them. Boom! The umbrella in Dou Linger's hand whistled as she put it away again. She spun a circle and held it behind her back. She looked quite dashing when she looked at it. This umbrella is a little interesting. The Black Mountain Sword King looked at the umbrella in Dou Linger's hand with a trace of surprise in his eyes. The light released by the paper umbrella had easily blocked his sword elemental energy. It was obvious that the material and power of the paper umbrella were not simple. It's a waste for such an interesting thing to fall into your hands. The Black Mountain Sword King put Lu Wenshan back on the ground. Suddenly, a large array of light appeared in his eyes. Boom! Tyrannical Yuan energy was released from his body. The area within 100 meters was filled with the Black Mountain Sword King's fierce aura. Teacher Du, take this and stay where you are. Dou Linger took out a jade slip and handed it to Du Liani. Although Du Liani didn't know what it was, she could feel the vast power within the jade slip and understood that it was not an ordinary thing. She looked at Dou Linger, who was actually taking the initiative to rush towards the Black Mountain Sword King. The Black Mountain Sword King did not hesitate to draw his Black Mountain Sword and slashed at Dou Linger. Suddenly, a 3-meter-long sword energy burst out from the Black Mountain Sword, like a roaring beast. Chapter 652. In the face of this ferocious attack, Dou Linger calmly opened the paper umbrella in her hand and blocked in front of her. Boom! The sword chi blasted on Dou Linger's paper umbrella. The umbrella was unscathed, and Dou Linger, who was behind him, was also calm. She hid behind the umbrella and easily blocked the attack without being disturbed in the slightest. Hegemony of the Black Slaughter. The Black Mountain Sword King leaped and was already in front of Dou Ling. This leap was just in time for Dou Ling to receive the attack. He had already landed behind Dou Ling, behind the paper umbrella. Dou Ling's figure was undoubtedly exposed. In terms of combat experience, Dou Ling was obviously far inferior to the Black Mountain Sword King. Another extremely powerful sword move fell directly toward Dou Ling. Dou Ling seemed to have known this would happen. She calmly turned the handle of the umbrella, and at the same time, turned her body, bringing the paper umbrella behind her, just in time to catch the Black Mountain Sword King's sword. Boom! The terrifying sword chi vibrated, as if to directly send Dou Ling flying. Dou Ling held the paper umbrella in her hand and moved back half a meter. Countless strands of black sword origin wrapped around Dou Ling's paper umbrella, trying to tear it apart. However, there was nowhere for it to go. Dou Ling's strong defense kept it at bay. Spin! Dou Ling slapped the handle of the paper umbrella in her hand, and suddenly the paper umbrella spun. The power attached to the paper umbrella spun several times, and then rushed toward the Black Mountain Sword King with an even more terrifying force. What? He didn't expect that the paper umbrella was not only indestructible, but also had the effect of bouncing back his move. This surprised the Black Mountain Sword King greatly. In the face of his sword move, it was naturally not difficult for him to dodge it. After easily dodging the attack, the Black Mountain Sword Monarch formed a series of hand seals and suddenly slapped the Black Mountain Sword with his palm. Suddenly, the Black Mountain Sword Monarch seemed to seal a power within it. As the Black Mountain Sword Monarch waved the sword, the Dark Demon Tiger was actually hidden within the sword aura and quickly blasted towards Dou Ling. Dou Ling still blocked with the paper umbrella. It looked a little monotonous, but it was very practical. You can be proud of being able to block 3 of my moves in a row. Boast all you want on the road to the netherworld. The Black Mountain Sword King stood in place, waiting for Dou Ling to be smashed into pieces by his sword. The sword chi was still blocked by the paper umbrella. However, Dou Ling suddenly felt the umbrella sink. It was as if something had crawled onto it. When Dou Ling looked up, she saw a sharp tiger claw coming at her. Whoosh! Although Dou Ling dodged in time, her face was still scratched by the sharp aura. Dou Ling's, Dou Ling. Dou Ling's, Dou Ling, Dou Ling's, S's of Dou Ling's. The Dark Demon Tiger landed on the ground, and the paper umbrella fell into the Black Mountain Sword King's hands. The Black Mountain Sword King sneered. Dou Ling's figure was retreating, and there was a claw mark on her cheek. Dou Ling couldn't help but touch it. His face had been cut open, and his fingers were stained with a bright red substance. That was blood. Dou Ling saw the blood. She froze in place. Oh no, Dou Ling seems to be scared of blood. Judging from Dou Ling's performance, she seemed to be in a state where she couldn't touch blood. If she saw it, she might faint. Such a special attribute was really surprising. If the enemy knew about Dou Ling's special attribute, he could directly cut himself in front of Dou Ling, and Dou Ling would faint. What's going on? Even I feel a chill. The Black Mountain Sword King held the paper umbrella in his hand. This paper umbrella looked very ordinary and unremarkable. It was just that the material was a little special. However, the Black Mountain Sword King's attention was no longer on the paper umbrella in his hand, but on Dou Ling. The Dark Demon Tiger also lowered its body, as if it had smelled something dangerous. Therefore, it calmed down and stared ahead with great vigilance. Blood. Dou Ling's eyes looked a little dull. When she opened her mouth, she felt that her throat was a little dry. Between the collision of her lips and teeth, there seemed to be a little movement. Kill. In an instant, Dou Ling's eyes seemed to sharpen. Her eyes were filled with terror, and her originally pitch-black pupils were now suffused with a bright red color. It was the same as Li Zongjiu's evil soul eye. Although Li Zongjiu didn't use it much now, once it was used, it would be a killing move. However, Li Zongjiu's evil soul eye could control itself. However, Dou Ling's eye skill seemed to require external conditions to trigger. Once it was triggered, the impact could not be controlled by Do Ling. Originally, Do Ling's aura was pure and gentle, like a piece of white paper. But at this moment, when Do Ling released her power, it was immediately like a piece of white paper dyed red with blood. Boom! Do Ling released a terrifying blood aura and rushed towards the Black Mountain Sword King in front of her. The Black Mountain Sword King was surprised. The Black Mountain Sword in his hand suddenly stabbed out, but Do Ling's figure appeared directly and caught the sword in his hand with both hands. What? The Black Mountain Sword King was shocked. With such speed, Do Ling's strength was at least 10 times stronger than before. The Dark Demon Tiger also leaped up at this moment and rushed towards Do Ling with a ferocious momentum. However, Do Ling lifted her foot and kicked out. Bang! The Dark Demon Tiger was sent flying by Do Ling's kick. It howled and rolled on the ground. It couldn't get up for a long time. Although it was formed by the power of its original soul, it could still be injured. Damn it! The Black Mountain Sword King wanted to pull out his sword, but Do Ling's wrists had already turned and directly clamped the sword in his hand. Bang! The Black Mountain Sword King was thrown into the air and then smashed hard on the ground. Although the power was not great, it showed that Do Ling's strength was above the Black Mountain Sword King's. In the face of Do Ling's power, the Black Mountain Sword King could only suffer a setback. My sword! When he landed, the Black Mountain Sword King's hands loosened, and the sword was seized by Do Ling. Chapter 653. 10,000 Tea Villa. At the banquet, there was also a process. Most of them were just compliments. After that, there were also some singing and dancing performances. Most of the time, these people of the same level communicated with each other. Li Zongjio and Kun Erishur were eating and drinking at the side. At first, Kun Erishur was still depressed about his own matter. After thinking about it, it was not a big deal. He did not know when they would come to find trouble with him, so there was no need to worry about it now. Therefore, Kun Erishur was now eating freely. He did not look worried at all. Two young heroes, I am the manager of the 100 Medicine Pavilion, Feng Tengfei. Just as the two of them were eating, a voice rang out from behind them. After the incident just now, most of the people here were basically walking around Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio. Even the people within 5 meters of Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio were rarely seen. Therefore, when someone came to talk to them, they were even a little surprised. You are not afraid of trouble, but the name 100 Medicine Pavilion seems to have been heard somewhere. Kun Erishur turned to look at the person who came. It was an elegant middle-aged man in his 40s. He seemed to be a relatively friendly person, giving people a sense of closeness. When Kun Erishur heard the name 100 Medicine Pavilion, he also felt that it was familiar, but he did not know where he had heard it before. Then Kun Erishur also remembered. Oh, fuck, 100 Medicine Pavilion. The brand of 100 Medicine Pavilion is even older than the brand of 1000 Taste Herb Hall. Kun Erishur patted his head and suddenly remembered. This was because in Kun Castle, if a business wanted to enter, they must have absolute strength. Even 1000 Taste Herb Hall did not have the opportunity to enter Kun Castle. But this 100 Medicine Pavilion had 3 stores. Kun Erishur had seen it before. Indeed, this level was different. Hee, it's nothing. It's just that we started a little earlier and were lucky to catch up with the times. Feng Tengfei said with a smile. Among the 3 major herbal merchants, the strength of our 100 Medicine Pavilion still needs to improve. Why are you looking for us? Li Zongjio asked. Kun Erishur was surprised for a long time, but he could not find any key points. If this went on, no one would know that he was being sold. I have heard of young hero Li's fame in alchemy. I have a good opportunity to show you your skills. At the same time, you can get a good harvest. Feng Tengfei said. A good harvest? Li Zongjio frowned. He naturally heard of the name of 100 Medicine Pavilion. As an alchemist, of course, he was familiar with these herbal merchants. Sometimes, these herbal merchants would recruit some alchemists and give them some VIP cards. With this VIP card, they could enjoy some discounts that ordinary people could not enjoy. Since young hero Li came to this banquet today, you must be here for the prize of the 6th grade herbs. Feng Tengfei's eyes were sharp. Someone with a temper like Li Zongjio wouldn't come to such an exchange. If he wasn't here to hug someone's leg, then he was here to look for benefits. He had been watching the two of them for a long time and found that the two of them were just eating here. Obviously, they had eaten a lot, but their stomachs seemed to be bottomless, like a bottomless pit. They just kept eating and drinking. Of course, Feng Tengfei could have an accurate guess. In fact, it was because at the very beginning, he heard the conversation between Li Zongjio and Su Sha. He also knew that Li Zongjio's goal was the 6th grade herbs. It was because of this that Feng Tengfei stared at Li Zongjio. Your eavesdropping skills are good. If you have any tricks, just say it. Li Zongjio sneered. With his strong mental strength, if Li Zongjio wanted to, he could even recall the things that happened in the last 3 days. Some details of anything that he came into contact with, some details that he did not notice, but as long as Li Zongjio came into contact with something, he could basically recall it. Therefore, Li Zongjio recalled a little. In his memory, he saw this guy beside him when he was talking to Su Sha. Those who could come to this place today were not simple people. Moreover, the person in front of him was a high-ranking person of the 100 Medicine Pavilion. Since he was invited, he must have a certain level of ability to come to the 10,000 T Villa and participate in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion exchange. Therefore, even though this person appeared to be very amiable, so amiable that it could cause others to lower their guard, it was impossible for Li Zongjio to relax. He easily sensed that the person in front of him had impure intentions. Playing tricks in front of Li Zongjio. If Li Zongjio was in a bad mood, it would not be strange for him to directly kill you. Therefore, when he stared at Feng Tengfei, his sharp eyes immediately made Feng Tengfei's heart tremble. It seemed like this young man was not as simple as he appeared to be. Originally, he looked for Li Zongjio because he thought that Li Zongjio still had some value before his death. After offending the Spirit Valley sect and the young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, Li Zongjio and Su Sha were no different from dead people. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well make use of him. Hee, don't worry. I have no evil intentions. We are just taking what we need. After some time, there will be an underground alchemist competition. If the participating alchemists can win, they will be able to obtain a large amount of precious medicinal ingredients. The lowest grade of medicinal ingredients is the 6th grade. A glint flashed across Li Zongjio's eyes as he listened. What competition is so good? Who is the organizer? Kuan Erisher asked. Feng Tengfei maintained a mysterious smile and kept looking at Li Zongjio. It seemed that Kuan Arashi's answer was not important. The main thing was Li Zongjio. After all, Li Zongjio was the imperial alchemist. As for Kuan Erisher, it seemed that he was just Li Zongjio's underling. If I am not wrong, it is the Dark Horse Elixir meeting. Li Zongjio said lightly. Feng Tengfei was slightly surprised when he heard Li Zongjio's words. He did not expect Li Zongjio to mention the Dark Horse Elixir meeting. Yes, it is the Dark Horse Elixir meeting. Since you have heard of it, I will say it directly. Our 100 Medicine Pavilion can give you a place. Even the medicinal ingredients you obtain in the Dark Horse Elixir meeting will belong to you. What we want is the mining rights of a mountain range after the competition. Feng Tengfei said. Kuan Erisher took a sip of the dark brown drink in his hand. What Dark Horse Elixir meeting? What mining rights? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.